governing body. All students are members and participants in the government of the student body, and as such are encouraged to take part in discussion of Senate bills and orders or issues affecting students. Please wait to be recognized by the chair and be courteous to others wishing to speak. Alexander. Baker. Bauer.
Here.
Benzoni.
Here.
Breitbart. Birch.
Present.
Doherty.
Here. Present.
Debates.
Here.
Beeson.
Present.
Fitton. Foley. Here. Grenadorova. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Kensler.
Here.
Kearns.
Here.
Lang.
Here.
Merle. Sorry, we're left absences today. Nygaard.
Here.
Osborne.
Here.
Parkinson.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Blankenberg.
Here.
Schulte.
Here.
Snell.
Present.
Turhall.
Here.
Voss.
Here.
Walsh.
Present.
Williams.
Here.
Did I miss anyone? Okay, we sent. You received the minutes from the last 2 weeks. Senator Voss, I know your name needs to be corrected in last week's minutes. Are there any further corrections?
My name is
Senator Parkinson?
Yes, just my name in the closing announcements. So it just says Parkinson. It's not a big deal. It's Parkinson.
Are there any other corrections?
I assume you fixed Elijah Desch's name in the open forum.
Senator Johnson, what?
I'm sorry. His name when he came to speak last week, it was messed up. I assume I don't know if it was fixed or not, but it was real. It was he must have been speaking unclearly or something. So anyway.
Senator Walsh.
As a point of information, well, not really, but do we have a quorum?
Determining that at the moment. Right now we're determining if we have a quorum. We can't even seat our new senators unless we have a quorum. So, just hold on momentarily. We can still do reports, but we can't vote. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move into reports so that we don't get. Can we do that? Is that okay? Okay. Rules.
Okay, so rules met at 6:10 down in the Western Office Space, like usual. So please come if you're always welcome to. We had a series of bills. A lot of them were seating bills that we would be seating tonight if we have quorum. That is. Also, we have officially established an ad hoc committee, and so we have Chair Bauer over here, the ad hoc committee, and he'll give that report a little bit later, which is very exciting, and that is again for the University Affairs and the PR and Election Commission accounts, so they can, because they wish to kind of help promote elections and promote GSB and all that good stuff, so we're working on that. Other than that, we have refining the executive veto override, which is 027 SZ, so that's kind of an old one, as well as the temporary policy for an executive veto 1B, and those have both been tabled in rules, but I thought you guys should know where they are, and hopefully those should be coming up to the agenda soon. still currently working on the bylaws. We'll be in chapter 6, so if you guys have any comments or questions about chapter 6 and the bylaws, please come to our rules meeting or let me know. Other than that, well, we set priorities for financial legislation favorably, but it was tabled in finance, so we probably won't see that bill. And we have a few bills in second read, so from then on, we are pretty good. So if you guys have any questions for me, please let me know. Otherwise, have a very good meeting. If we have any.
Finance Committee?
Okay, so Finance Committee met last night. We discussed several bills, including several that are not yet in budgeting. So that has been resolved. You will see what I'm talking about at that point. That being said, we saw a bill for funding ISU Rass, which was sent favorably 7-0 to 1. There was one abstention, as one of our at-larges was, I believe, previously involved with the group. There was a Finance Committee amendment which struck a line for travel to Des Moines competition, which changed the total to $816.46. Allocating to KURE was sent favorably unanimously with a vote of 8-0-0. Funding mock trial was sent favorably at 5-0-2. There were 2 members who are either involved with the club or felt that they had some conflict of interest, so there are 2 abstentions. Those are not no votes. There was also a Finance Committee amendment, but I believe that is one that is not yet in budget. Is that correct? Funding mock trial was one of the ones not yet in legislative record. Funding Sir Magazine, I believe, is the other, and that was sent favorably at 6-0-2, which has a Finance Committee amendment. We can get into that in detail when we get that into legislative record. And with that, Finance is getting into the review of the funding process right now. We will be reviewing Chapter 11. We will be reviewing P&C, even outside of any restructuring that we choose to undertake in the next year. So if you have any concerns with Chapter 11 or priorities and criteria, please let your nearest Finance Committee member know, whether that's a senator or an at-large. Bring your concerns. This is your stuff too. Finance Committee is not the only one who owns Chapter 11. They're not the only ones who own the priorities and criteria. So if you have concerns with them, get them out. With that, I'm going to ask that you table the bill that's transferring funds to the investment account. This is more of as my role as finance director. Becoming aware of the situation that we might want to not generate more paperwork for you to go through. So I will ask that you table that for at least 1 week, and we can talk more about it next week. I'm just going to make sure that I have all of our ducks in a row. So with that, I will yield to any questions.
Are there any questions for Finance Director this week? Senator Kensler.
This isn't a question so much as it is a statement. May I address the finance director?
You may.
Finance Director Bisky, I noticed the other day, I was talking to PR and they were talking about updating certain things on the website. And I didn't know if you were aware of this for the funding documents, not necessarily the priorities and criteria, but like the GSB Finance PowerPoint, it's a little out of date. I was wondering if the Finance Committee was going to be working on that and to
I was unaware that there was a finance PowerPoint to be found on the GSB website, so that's news to me.
Okay, perfect. It's under, it's like, does my organization qualify? And then there's a couple different documents.
Sure. Okay, I will look on to that page
Okay, thanks.
if I have some free time during this.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments for Finance Director this week? Thank you. PR Committee, Chair Bauer.
All right, PR met last night, same place, same time. We're finalizing the focus group, getting participants who are willing to take part in this. So we got those people lined up. We just have to notify them, pick a day and time of when we'd like to do it. If you have any questions or concerns about that, and input on what we should be talking about, you can contact me directly and we'll discuss it. Next. We talked about the before, so we had that COVID posted again. So that wasn't able to successfully be recorded. So hopefully this camera doesn't die out on us tonight. That's an update on that. Everything is continuing to be posted on GSB's YouTube channel, which is just ISU GSB, and it has all the past meetings on there. All of our meetings are over 100 views, so we do have people that are utilizing the videos. Obviously, some of them are from GSB, but there's over 100. You can assume at least half of those are students, which is better than nothing. So we'll continue to be doing that, looking into different possibilities of live streaming, those types of things. Next we discussed the newsletter, which will be going out November 8th, I believe. I think it's the second Sunday of November. So those of you who have contacted me about articles, please talk to me at some point this week so we can get a hash out the orders requirement, those types of things. But yeah, and if anyone else has any suggestions of what to put in the newsletter, what to take out, those types of things, let me know. For people, I'm trying to include projects that have been completed by GSB in the newsletter so students can see firsthand what we are doing. So if you have completed any projects over the last month or even this term so far that haven't been in the newsletter, you can email me or talk to me directly again. So we were able to inform students of the projects that are being completed. So if anyone has those projects, just let me know. Next. We just kind of went through open forums, type of thing I can do here. Advisor Brody gave us some great ideas that he picked up when he was over in the UK. That's how their student government works from all of themselves. So we'll be using those things. Senator Parkinson is working on GSB videos. We'll just have a 30-second promo video for elections coming up at the end of November or the beginning of December. And then he'll be working on kind of a more extravagant video, parody off House of Cards for all of you. The Holly side enthusiasts that have seen that. So he's going to be working with, there's a comedian class, something along those lines, professional comedian writers. Yeah.
Nice to talk to you.
So we're on the front of the Daily if you're curious today. But yeah, we'll be working with that class, kind of get material written up, and then we'll go from there. It will be a longer process since it will be roughly a 5-minute video, so look for that at the end of January, so keep that on your radar. Other than that, we'll be working on doing updates to the website, making it more user-friendly, geared towards students, what they would want to see versus what's currently on there. So if you have any suggestions about the website, you can let me or Senator Doherty know. Other than that, that's it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes.
Ad hoc committee.
No report this week. We haven't met, so there's no report.
Can you explain what the committee is about?
Yes. So the ad hoc committee is looking at the 2 bills that are currently tabled and a random assortment of committees. Establishing accounts for the election commission, PR committee, and then UA committee got stuff in there too. So we'll be looking at establishing accounts for those 3 committees/commissions. We'll be looking at the merits and the necessity to have money for those specific committees, because there will be a need at some point. So we'll just have, it'll just be a kind of an informal discussion of if the amount, if money should be there, how much money should be there, which committee/commission should have this money, etc. So that's pretty much a brief overview. We haven't established a meeting time yet. With that being said, with the ad hoc committee, please meet with me after the meeting. I'd like to discuss our meeting time with you all. Other than that, anyone have any initial questions?
Thank you. University Affairs, Senator.
All right, so we met again last night at 6 o'clock, kind of review the projects that we've been working on and get an update on the project. So Senator Fischek has been working with Director Hofer and FP&M to kind of look at and evaluate the water bottle fillers as well as spigots on campus. Looks like that is a priority for them right now, and they're looking at getting them phased in, but only as water fountains break, so they're going to maybe try and speed that up a little bit. So they're going to be continuing to work with FP&M on that. Senator Breitbart ran into a slight bump in the road with his engineer on the sidewalk across from the WL, but it doesn't look like it's going to slow them up too much, so they'll continue working on that. Should have a proposal for that done in the next couple of weeks here. Senator Schulte, along with the help of a couple other senators, is working on an email template that we will share with all of you to send out. He selected about 10 select clubs right now. He's going to expand that to a few more. And then also we're looking at including that on Newsline, basically to reach out to students, see what their issues are that they're having, their concerns in universities. So we can get some direct contact from the student organization to see what the problems they've been having so we can fix them. Director Brody also came to our meeting, shared some of the stuff that he picked up from across the pond over there while I was there. So we're looking forward to moving forward with a few of those things, working with PR a little bit on those. Also, next Tuesday, October 29th at 8 p.m., tentatively, we'll send out an email officially, but we're looking to have a safety walk around campus. So evaluating sidewalks, landscaping, different parts, dark spots of campus. For those of you that have been here before, safety walks are fairly standard. So we will be doing that next Tuesday. We look for an email on that. And lastly, I met with the president of the Sports Club Council just this Monday to look at maybe changing a few policy things with how they fund and allocate things. And I know that President Hughes and Vice President Fletcher has met with them as well. So we're looking at maybe reforming a little bit of that. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Or any of the other projects that the senators are working on, you can contact them directly. I believe Senator Charles is going to give a quick update on the food situation.
Good news with the food situation. So as of the Newsline that went out today, student organizations are now allowed to sell food again on campus. All they have to do is submit a event authorization and use an approved vendor. Other than that, everyone's good to go. I'm just putting the finishing touches on a summary of the work I've done and kind of information I found out. So I'll be getting that off to UA Chair Kearns and Chair Bauer and then anyone else who wants it as well.
Any questions?
Vice Speaker Snow.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Since I don't have anything terribly new, I will just make my comments brief. Really, the main thing I want to say is we have 3 new people here tonight. We have a UROC senator, an SUV senator, and a graduate senator to be seated this evening. And I just wanted to say to you 3, if at any point you have any questions whatsoever about what the heck's happening, do not be afraid to raise your placard or raise your hand and interrupt what's going on. We don't mind that at all. I know maybe this seems a little intimidating, but don't worry about it. This is just the format of the room. It's not that intimidating. We're very friendly. So if you have any hesitations, curiosities of what's happening, just let somebody know. And I will yield with that. Any questions? Thank you.
Comments from the executive branch. President Hughes.
Thank you. First, I just want to apologize to everybody for not sharing my usual electronic update. As I went to prepare that this afternoon, my laptop died on me. And so then I went and checked out one of the laptops that you can get from the Student Activity Center, which is open to all students and funded by GSB. So I should say thank us for that. So I opened up the laptop, and as soon as I fired it up, I got to install 80 required updates in order to use it. That took about 70 or 80 minutes. So George Michelon is now aware of that issue. Hopefully he will fix it for future students. But I am working on good old-fashioned pen and paper for tonight. I'll get this to you in electronic format, hopefully tomorrow, potentially Friday, but as you receive it and look it over, feel free to contact me via email or if you're running to me in the office about any of these issues, and we can address them after you have the opportunity to review that. So I'll go through them, some of the highlights here. Last Thursday, I had an opportunity to meet with Provost Wicker. We discussed an idea that had been brought up earlier by Vice President Fletcher in our meeting with Veronica Dark, who's the president of the Faculty Senate, to add a component to introductory courses that would provide some information to students, particularly freshmen, about some of the overarching university structure. For example, where to go if they have an issue with their professor. Just some of who the faces are on campus that are important people, like the president or the provost. He loved the idea. He was very supportive. He offered to provide some resources to us to help make this a reality. So all the major players are on board, which is helpful because there's a lot of bureaucracy, but if everybody is on the same page, then you can roll through it pretty quickly. So we're going to move through that as quickly as we can. Hopefully just get something ready, some sort of online component that's kind of video heavy. Students can view these videos and have the understanding of, okay, I can go to a department chair if I have an issue. And if they don't address this, I can take it to my college's dean. And if we still have a problem, I can take it to the provost's office, that kind of thing. Last Friday, I met with two representatives of the ISU bookstore. And one of the interesting things that we discussed was a pilot program that they are planning for next semester, spring 14, which would take place in about 6 to 8 courses. The students in these courses would be required to use an e-textbook for each of those courses. And that e-textbook would be, in the past they did a similar pilot program where the e-textbook was provided at no cost to the students. But they decided that the feedback from that program was not very useful because every student loved the free textbook. Imagine that, right? So with this new proposed pilot, they would require each student to use an e-textbook that the student would be required to purchase. I let them know that I didn't really like that idea. I was concerned that there wasn't really student involvement in the development of the pilot. So they're slowing it down a little bit. We'll get some more students involved. But at some point, if you are interested in being involved in the project as we move forward, let me know. Also, yesterday I met with Olivia Madison, who's the dean of the library, and she talked to me about a proposal that they have for renovation. She also let me know she discussed this with Vice Speaker Snell, as he's on the library advisory committee, so they have the opportunity to talk about that. But basically, if you've been in the library, they renovated the 3rd floor, and the private study spaces, which are along the, I want to say the western wall of the floor, they used to be individual study cubbies, kind of, and that's still what's in place on the 2nd floor. But now on the 3rd floor, they have room for 2 students in each study cubby. Does anyone here use those before in the 2nd or 3rd floor of the library? Okay, so I guess I want to open this up now to some of you who have feedback. They're looking to change the single cubbies on the 2nd floor to the same type of double on the 3rd floor. So that would take it from 40 single slots to 20 double slots. And on the 4th floor, they have single slots currently, and they have no plans to change those. So basically, it's an improvement in allowing for group work. It doesn't necessarily restrict capacity, but no one will really sit with somebody who's sitting alone anyway. I let her know that my main concern was capacity. If they're already at capacity, I don't like the idea of limiting that, but she didn't believe that was necessarily an issue. So does anyone have any immediate thoughts on that topic that I can take to her? I would let her know about this tomorrow.
Senator Schulte?
When I walk by there, normally those single ones are pretty full, and so I know I'm not too keen on just going out and studying with a random person, so I think that would decrease the capacity a little bit, so I would be in favor of keeping the singles.
Senator Lang?
Keep singles. I'm with Schulte on this. I don't like sitting next to random people. I like the singles. Less distracting.
Okay.
Senator Doherty?
Just because I haven't seen them, is there like a dividing area between them, or is it just an open table where 2 people sit at?
Yeah, they're private areas. The single ones are private with a divider for each individual, and then the double ones are the same, but they just have basically twice as much room.
Right, but I mean, the doubles, is there a wall between the 2 and the 1 booth?
Do you mean between the 2 people that are in the same booth?
Yeah.
No.
No, okay.
Vice Speaker Snell?
Listen, I say a question. Did she say that like this, to increase the double is because on the 3rd floor, or the group plus the group work is done, that's reaching max capacity?
My understanding, and Senator Snell can kind of correct this if he has a different one, is that they're looking to do renovation on the 2nd floor that's identical to that occurred on the 3rd floor. And the plan for the 3rd floor, which included the double slots, that's just what is in the plans currently. So if they were to do a renovation on the 2nd floor that kept the single slots, they don't really know how they would update them, so they might just kind of have to stay as they are, which would kind of be an anachronism almost. They all look kind of old, but do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. There's plenty of graffiti on it. It's kind of hanging sometimes.
All right, yeah, so those of you who can't envision what we're talking about here, on the 2nd and 3rd floor is the library along the western wall, as he said. There are concrete pillars approximately every 5 feet or so, and they stick out, probably this far from the wall. So it's in between these things that these back-to-back table things are wedged, and the way they're currently set up is each one's only about this wide. You guys have been up there; they're really skinny. You don't really have much room to push your chair back and, get out. You kind of have to, this is about as far as you can do it, so you kind of have to do this to get in there. It's very small, kind of like have to, get on a horse to get in there. And so, of course, the library is searching for solutions because obviously they can't, remove the concrete that's along the wall. The tables, what they did on the third floor is they took those singles out and they put tables that are probably a little shorter than these tables that we're at here. And there's room for 3 people, and we could have 3 chairs, but they only have 2 there, so it doesn't get too cramped. The idea is to produce a more diverse, this is how they explain it, a more diverse field of opportunities for seating. What they've done is they've moved single study carrels along the back wall. So if you head all the way back as you walk by these things that we're talking about, there are single carrels along the back wall now. So there are single seating back there that are used, maybe the times that we've gone back there, maybe 50 to 2/3, 50% to 2/3. So they're not used to capacity. Well, I'm sure they are deadly, but for the most part they're not. Likewise with the new 2-seaters on this third floor. A lot of times you see groups working there. That's kind of, I think, what the library had in mind. Then, of course, we have the larger tables that are by the stacks in that same area, and those seat 4 people. And then out in the open space, at least on the second floor, there's the big clusters of tables that will seat like 8 people. And then up on the third floor, and outside like special collections that have the couches and stuff. So the library is trying to have a diverse set of options for people to study at. Hence, their desire to knock out these really skinny little single-seaters and put in the 2-seaters. I think was it Senator Dougherty who wanted to know about the dividers. There are dividing petitions here on each end of each table, but not in the middle. And then on the other side of that petition, there's this big concrete pillar that goes all the way to the ceiling. And then there's another one on the other side all the way down the wall. So what they're trying to do, like I said, is they've got single seaters along the side. They want to put the double seaters along the edge. And then they'll have the 4 seaters in the middle. And then out by the middle of the second floor, they've got the tables of 8. And then they've got the couches on first and third floor. So that's kind of what they're aiming at here is diversify the selection.
Senator Parkinson?
I just have a question for Vice President Snow.
Pardon?
You said they can fit up to 3 chairs. So are those other extra chairs available, or do you have to go to the next cubicle to take the chair?
You would have, that would probably be what most people do.
Yeah,
for speeches. But there are other chairs around. You have to.
I just didn't know if they're located nearby. So especially like during Deadly from the library,
Right.
jam, it's just packed with people. So you could get 3 people in the group.
And to answer your question, if you took a chair, you have to provide it from somewhere.
I didn't know if it's actually supplied.
Is there any further feedback regarding this topic for President Hughes at this time? President Hughes?
Okay. Thank you for all that information. There's a couple other things that I will skip for now because I think we'll talk about them later. So tomorrow, myself, Vice President Clutcher, and Finance Director Radisky are traveling to the University of Iowa for the Board of Regents meeting. That is where I will speak in favor of our proposed student activity fee increase, and also in favor of the proposal for tuition, which includes a freeze on tuition for resident undergraduate students. And then next Monday, a group of GSB and GPSS leadership will be meeting with SciRide to discuss service levels for the upcoming academic year and the ways that they can combat the really drastic increase in SciRide ridership, which had gone up at the beginning of this year was about 20% higher than last year, which is a significant jump, much higher than enrollment. So that's going on. Also, if you're involved in the proposed policy for Cabinet and Senate communication, that will be back on the agenda next week. I would really encourage you to discuss that with Cabinet members over the next week and make sure that we really facilitate that conversation before coming to this meeting 1 week from now. So that's most of the highlights for now, and I'll yield for questions. Yes. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments for President Rass?
Thank you.
We're now in open forum, time for discussion of issues relevant to students. Senator Fitt.
At this time, I'm going to ask ex officio Harvey just to have a couple of comments on the bill we'll be considering later this evening. It's supporting great community housing, and she can explain.
I'd like to turn it over to our guest first, if that's okay, and then I can wrap up.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Shopinski. I am your representative on the Ames City Council. I learned a couple of hours ago that you were going to be addressing this evening, and so I was glad that it worked out that I had an opportunity to come and speak to you. And I don't seem to be able to get this thing. I used to actually do this kind of thing for a living. Can't get it to stay. Okay. I read the resolution, and I'm already coming to you with a point of concern because it seems to be validating what we've been hearing is going on around campus, that there is misinformation. And it reads from a point of fear. And I want to give you the facts and a little history about what the discussion has been and how it originated regarding rental housing codes and the city council. We hired a new fire chief last spring, Sean Bayou, and when he took on the job, he very thoroughly reviewed all of the documents pertinent to his job. And he discovered that Greek housing was included in the rental housing code. He also discovered we haven't been doing it in a long time. So that initiated a conversation about why it wasn't happening and if it should happen. We scheduled a meeting, the city council, with representatives and students, primarily students, to discuss this issue on August 20th. Your representative, Alexandria Harvey, said, you know what, August 20th is not a very good date for students. It's when everybody's first arriving. Can we postpone it? Yes, of course we can, because the whole point of this meeting was to have students involved, particularly those who were Greek House members. We had a meeting on the 17th, a very productive discussion. We talked about how the majority of Greek houses throughout this country, in university communities of course, are exempt from the housing renting code because they are unique. We talked about how it wasn't important how many parking spaces you have because they are generally historic homes with limited parking spaces built in a time when people didn't have cars. We talked about how it was different, that students sleep in large spaces unlike other apartments or rental housing units. We identified that there was a difference. We also were concerned about those portions of the rental housing code that exist so that you don't die. And we were assured over time by the fire chief that the fire inspection, which you are entitled to, includes all of those aspects of safety. So at this point, we want to make sure that in writing, Greek houses are removed, are exempt from the rental housing code, and that in writing, in the fire inspection, all of those items that have been done are in writing and are in the fire code. And that's where we currently stand. And it's been very unfortunate that this has wrapped into an election campaign. Well, we know it's been validated that there are these assumptions, these rumors, this misinformation that somehow the city council wants to enforce Greek housing into the rental housing code. It's not true. It doesn't make sense. In fact, last night, we made a motion to get that done right away so that that can be clear and we'll be done with it. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Senator
If I may, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for coming first and foremost. When you say it appears that the resolution is written out of here, can you address specifically where you believe that is so?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. The city of Ames is considering the status of fraternity sorority housing with respect to municipal code. We're already subject to fire safety. I would say you're entitled to fire safety because I think we all want to make sure you're safe. The enforcement threatens to place, here we are, now reads, okay, the municipal code rental housing as it now reads threatens to place 3,000 students, the place I'm supposed to say that they call home. And so that to me reads from a place of fear, because there was never anything said, nor has anything been said, to indicate that we were going in that direction.
I guess my only concern as the primary author of the bill, it's not that the city council was having a discussion on enforcing it. Simply from my perspective, and feel free to correct me, that if it were enforced, that the said clause would be true.
Yes, if it were enforced, it would be difficult for the current structures to meet city housing rental inspection codes,
Okay, so
which is why we are moving and have been moving, and I have not heard anyone on the city council suggest that we should not make Greek houses exempt from this code.
Absolutely, and I just wanted you to know I wasn't trying to serve in any way that was the conversation. I've worked with Alex for the past couple of months throughout this process, so I don't want to insinuate to members of the Senate when we upon this bill or to you yourself that I feel that the city council is currently having that conversation. So
Okay.
I can say pretty bluntly it's not from a place of fear from my personal perspective.
Good. Anything else? Thank you. Ann, did you want to say something?
I do. Good evening. I'm Ann Kinsel, and I'm running for City Council for the at-large position. It's unfortunate, but it came to my attention last week by Mr. Pinsky and others while I was doing ISU's business in Washington, D.C., that certain rumors were circulating in the Greek community that me and my campaign supported including the Greek housing in the city rental code. In other words, not moving to exempt the houses or to amend the code. This is a blatant mistruth. I have never publicly stated that. No one has ever approached me to ask me what my position was before these rumors began to circulate. I believe in the democratic process. Once you run for office, as you know from your position, you take the risk of both winning and losing. I don't mind losing the contest of ideas. I do mind losing based on misinformation and fear. So I'm here to tell you that my public position, my private position, all my positions have been that Greek housing should not be subject to the Ames Municipal Code. Furthermore, I'm a lawyer, so I understand legislation. Sometimes it's poorly drafted. Often it's poorly drafted. That's why we have courts, lawyers, and all kinds of process. In this case, I think the Ames Code was exceedingly poorly drafted to include rental Greek housing in the code in the first place. Then, processes being as they are, people just sort of looked the other way for years. And we don't need to enforce this because, well, we made a mistake, we want to take the time to correct it, whatever the situation might have been, it stayed on the books. Now, clearly the city is moving to exempt the Greek housing. This is the right thing to do. Rental codes exist primarily to protect people, as Ms. Sapinski has said. To protect you, Greek students, from fire and other life hazards. there have been a number of tragic incidents in our country related to Greek housing. So we have to be sure that the residents are protected, and that's part of the role of government. But in this case, I'm totally satisfied that our Greek housing is safe in Ames, or as safe as it could reasonably be. That's because I know as a lawyer that Greek housing is subject to a very high level of inspection, not only in the fire code, but also by insurers. Insurers carry the risk of this kind of congregate housing, and they're well aware of that risk. They're also well aware that young college-age plaintiffs and their parents make great victims, and so they don't want to pay that out. So, from my perspective, both as a citizen and as an attorney, there's no reason to include Greek housing under the code for health and safety protections. And there's frankly no other reason that can come to my mind. So I agree with Ms. Zupinsky that this is drafted, though not meaningfully, perhaps from a position of fear. But the most important thing is that you understand that our respective positions are in support of Greek housing. Now, it's pretty easy to correct misinformation to a degree. But there's a more important principle at hand here, and that's the principle of living in a university town. I firmly believe that in a university town, every single adult who lives here has the responsibility to model good civic behavior for the next generation that passes through here. Education here does not stop at the gates of ISU. Those adults who may have been involved in this kind of behavior and spreading fear and misinformation as part of an attempt to score political gain, shame on them. Thank you.
Alex, I didn't know if you had any further comments.
I don't really have any further comments, but if anybody wants to ask me a question, I'm here to answer questions.
Senator Johnson?
May I address a question to the issue liaison?
You may.
I guess while you're here, if you wanted to just provide maybe a brief update on your position, how everything's going. I know it's been here in recent weeks, and so I think that some of us might be interested.
Okay, well, it's going good. It's very busy and time-consuming, but I like it. Just want to update you guys. Make sure you register to vote. City council elections will be November 5th. I will try to send out an email with information on all of the candidates. And also, I guess that's it for now. Just keep pay attention to your emails because there'll be a few things coming up soon. So. Did I answer your question, Chris?
Oh yeah, no.
Senator Fitz.
All right. I had a couple of agenda changes. First and foremost, I moved to amend the agenda by changing 2014-2-052 and 053-E to the end of general orders. It's the seating members of committees, so we can do that after we get the groups review members. And then I have
Unanimous consent. I didn't have a second for that motion. Okay, so.
Yes. Second and?
Second. Unanimous consent has been called to move the two bills seating members on Rules Committee and seating members of PR Committee to the bottom of general orders, putting those at the end of the meeting. Is there any objection to unanimous consent?
Yeah. Great.
Okay, Senator, okay. That, yes. Okay, placard vote. If you'd like to move those to the end of general orders, vote yes. If you do not want to, vote no.
As a point of information to the chair, are you aware of why Mr. Voss objected?
Yes, I believe Mr. Voss objected, and he may correct me if I'm wrong, but Senator Bates would like to be considered for one of those positions, and he has to leave the meeting earlier tonight because of prior commitments, as he informed me prior to the meeting. and that is why there is an objection. You're welcome. With that, we will vote. If you'd like to move those to the end of general orders, please raise your placard now. Placards down. If you would not like to move those to the end of general orders, please raise your placards now. Down. Placards up for abstentions. By a vote of 3 to 22 to 1, that motion fails. Senator Pittman, you still.
Senator Debates, you have the question. Sure. For which committee are you seeking a position?
PR committee.
I move to amend the agenda to strike the PR committee from consideration tonight. Yes, strike it from the agenda.
You want some information? Go ahead.
It has been moved and seconded to strike Senate Order 2013-2-053SG, seating members of the PR committee from the agenda this evening.
I can move. The reason I'm making this motion is we shouldn't be putting our business ahead of the student groups that have to be here tonight. So if you have to wait, or if you're not able to be here at the end of the meeting, then we should just put it off for a week.
Point of information to the chair, this is not striking a bill from the agenda, getting rid of the bill, in fact, and it was withdrawn.
Table for a week.
Not in order. I don't think we need in order to strike.
Would you like to change this?
I'll withdraw the motion. Someone else can deal with it. I have two other bills. I move to add 2013-2-051F funding, I think it's, SIR magazine to new business.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to add the bill requiring the status to the new business. UC has been called. Is there any objection to UC?
Jen?
Okay, what is it like to know? I am not aware of it. Okay. We will now vote on whether or not we will add that to new business. If you would like to add the bill to new business, please raise your placard for yes. If you would, not yet, sorry. And if you don't want to add to the agenda, raise your placard for no. Do you know if that is debatable?
No, I don't. So I don't have anything to say. Yeah. We're gonna, is that fine?
We're gonna,
It's up to you.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I can move forward then real quick. I'm just adding, Speaker Williams is waiting, which hopefully you guys have that time to consider this. It's going to new business, we're considering next week. These groups have non-finance have been under the impression that we'll be here next week. So I don't think it's fair to them to wait 2 more weeks after they put the time in the process. But I know you see.
Yeah, I'd like to say that according to the bylaws, we have procedures for adding bills and to the agenda, and this procedure has not been followed, it's not been followed for many times now, and it's now proper procedure, and it is up to the person who's writing that said bill to make sure that a group's bill is placed on the agenda properly. This has not been done so. If this is a timely matter, I understand, and I feel regret for the group. But if this is a time issue for the group could have also come earlier. And so I don't see that it's fit to add this to the agenda, nor do I think it's fit to add any more of those to the agenda unless there's very valid reason we need it by tomorrow. But that's my own opinion. So I'll refrain from doing that. But it's not proper procedure, and so I will be objecting to this. I take the 2/3 vote to do this.
Is there, okay, question? We will now proceed into, was question seconded? Second. Okay, question has been called and seconded. We will now proceed into voting on this motion, whether or not to add this to new business. If you'd like to add it to new business, please raise your placard high for a yes, nay. Placards up for no. Down. Placards up for abstentions. By a vote of 4 to 19 to 3, motion fails. Senator Pittman still before.
I just want to make a quick comment, or 2 quick comments. I want to apologize for being late from the 44, and I had a couple duties I had to attend to tonight. Then I just want to respond real quick. I'm sure some of you can empathize. There are half a dozen bills that come across my desk every week, and I can't get them to the speaker right on time every time because it's too big.
Point of order,
It's open for.
well, we're supposed to be referring by president's authority and talking about motions that are not laid on the table at the moment. Oh, it's well, you're also discussing something that's previously been discussed.
We'll talk about.
As a point of information for the chair, could you inform the body what the proper procedure for students to appear on the floor is?
Yeah, the proper procedure during open forum is to have a student go to the podium, state their name, and then speak about whatever issue they'd like to discuss that is relevant to students. Okay. Senator Bauer.
All right, I've got a couple things during my report. I know that there's been some confusion about the event evaluation form for the outreach. You do not need to submit one of those every time you go to a constituency council meeting. You only need to do those for like actual events, so like New Year's Saturday, New Year Government Day, and those types of things. So you don't need to do it for constituency council events. I'm sorry for those of you that have been doing it, but just so everyone's clear, you don't have to do it for constituency council events. And then also, during my update, I mentioned if you have projects, send those to me so they can be included in the newsletter. Send those to me by November 1st, through email preferably. So November 1st, have your projects for the newsletter to me by then. And that is all. Thank you. I will be
One thing I did forget to mention during my announcement for GSB as a speaker was that we're having our city council meeting. So it's very nice that we have council members here presently, and this will be on November 13th. So please keep that on your mind when you are thinking about things. But I thought I would mention that since our council members are here as well. So if you have any questions for them, I strongly suggest asking them as well before the meeting. I yield.
Is there any further business for open forum? At this time, I'm going to ask Speaker Williams to chair the meeting briefly. I would like to give an update during open forum, and I'm going to go to the podium to do so.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Hillary Fletcher, Vice President of the Government Student Body. There's several students here tonight, and there's a few projects that I'm working on that I'd like your input on. That's why I'm choosing to talk about this during open forum, rather than later tonight during closing announcements when you all won't be here, because it'll be late. So a few things that I want to talk about. One is something that President Hughes mentioned during his opening comments regarding sharing information with students in their orientation courses. So ideally, the idea would be to share with students through about a 5-minute video what tenure is, how professors receive tenure, why it's important that they fill out student surveys, because then they know what that student input is being used for, and then also letting them know how they can address their concerns with the professor, whether the professor is tenured or not. Just so that students are aware that their academic quality is of utmost concern from the first semester to that they're here on our campus, and that they know how to ensure and take the right steps to receive that academic quality. So if you have any feedback regarding that project, please let me know. I'm pretty excited about it because I think it's an easy way to share information about university structure with students and let them know that what they think really does matter. The other project that I wanted to mention was the bike share program, so just give a brief update about that. Right now we're in the process of working with the purchasing department to send out a request for a proposal to have a company come to our campus and do an overall analysis of our campus as well as possibly the city of Ames. So we're looking into the extent of the area that they'll be looking at, but they'd be looking at the business model, the type of bike share program appropriate for our campus, funding structure, how the entire program would be run, where service stations would be located. So the public bike share system is the goal, and we want to have a company come to our campus and really look at the overall, what would this look like? And so we're pretty excited about that. I could talk to you about it all day. I'm really excited that we're working on this. And Speaker Williams, I want to ask you, on the bottom of the agenda, I wrote another project.
Be nice.
Not that one, but that one's also important. Oh, Mortensen Road. Got it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So the other update I wanted to give you is that I contacted Vice President of Finance, Warren Madden, last week and asked him about Mortensen Road. And that's been a big concern for a lot of students, is the safety and the lighting on Mortensen Road, especially when students are walking on that path at night. And then, so everyone knows, Mortensen Road is the road south of the towers. So that has property neighboring that road that is owned by the university as well as the city. So it's not only the city's responsibility, but also the university's to ensure that safety is a priority. So I just want to let you all know that Vice President of Finance, Warren Madden, is well aware of that. He was contacted by someone from the city, and they're looking at how they can get into the budget for next year. So if you have any further concerns, please let me know, and I'll be sure to address those. And he plans to keep us up to date on that. Those are my 3 things I'm working on right now. If you have anything that you want to fix, please let me know. I will gladly contact the person I need to contact. And for the students in the gallery, if you have any questions, if you're really excited about anything, let me know, because I'm pretty excited too. And with that, I'm going to go chair the meeting. So thanks. Oh wait, do you have any questions now? I can answer.
Are there any questions for our speaker? Senator Bauer.
May I just Vice President?
Yes.
You may not know this yet, but do you know how it would be financed to have the I don't know what you call them, the groups come in to do the analysis for the bike share? Did you know that?
Right. So to do a feasibility study on our campus for a bike share program, we're looking at a cost of between $20,000 and $25,000. So preliminary discussions, because a bike share program is a sustainability as well as a health and wellness project. Finances for that could come from GSB partially, and they probably will have to show that as a student body we're invested in this project. But also looking at just some of the different university councils and departments and branches of the university. They have funding available for special projects like this. And I mean, when it's only a few $1,000s from each department, and we have a lot of people pitch into that, it's a lot easier to figure that out. So I don't have a budget worked out yet, but because we have people from the university level on board with this project, I think that we'll be able to work something out. But if you have any ideas about funding, feel free to let me know. I plan on looking at grants over Thanksgiving break.
Thank you.
Yes.
Senator Bauer.
May I address the Vice President? Thank you for sharing these updates tonight, Hillary. Did you say the earliest that this would probably get done for Mortensen Road would be next year?
Preliminary email said budgeting for next year. So I would say yes, that would be the earliest.
Would there be a way to speed that up? Because I've had students approach me about like their friends getting hit by cars, and I personally drive on that almost every day at night, and it's very dark. There's no lighting.
I will tell you this, Senator Pintberg. If you could get specific feedback with student names as well as written statements, it's a lot easier for me to present that to university administration when I have it in my hand.
Okay.
As well as it's just different than hearsay. So if you want to gather information like that, that could be very strong evidence.
Just so you know, because we had brought this up for the campus health safety law, there was actually a speaker during open forum who was really interested in this as well, and so we'll be in contact with them and we will for just the right Senator Kinsler.
In regards to the lighting on Mortensen Road, are you looking for all of Mortensen or just a certain section?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I'd have to probably sit down and talk about that more with the people who are involved in the project, but I just wanted to let everyone know that it's going on and people are aware of the concern.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eddie.
Now I know I'm the speaker. Is that partly due though because the university owns part of the road in Mortensen, but the university owns part and then the city owns part, so the city can't really touch those.
Correct.
Are not
Both
split
parties
up.
have to collaboratively work together on this project because the university owns some land and the city owns some land bordering Mortensen Road, so one can't just choose to do it without the other being on board. I mean, they could do their section, but it would be kind of pointless.
Vice Speaker.
Maybe as Vice President? All right.
Hi.
It's kind of cool to have Vice President talk.
It's a whole new thing.
Yeah, it's unusual. Maybe the first in a long time. As a former member of the Ames City Council Student Affairs Commission, I just want to make you aware, you may already be aware, so interrupt me if you are, that one of the things that that committee does is oversee a grant program the city of Ames has with regards to.
I didn't know, but now I'm really excited.
Yes. The city of Ames has a pile of money. I don't know exactly how big it is, but they do have a pile of money for grants regarding student initiatives that have a community impact. And obviously, this would be one of those things. So I would encourage you to contact Senator Voss, who is my successor to that committee, and work with him in regards to the application process for that.
Thank you, Vice Speaker Snell.
Senator Dodd.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Alex, does she chair that committee? Yes, she does. I know because I appointed students too. Cool. The real reason I raised my factor, I was curious if you had any idea what, like, so after they do the initial estimate or whatever, say it sounds great and we go ahead with it, do you have any idea roughly how much that's going to cost and how much that would be coming from GSB? What project? I'm sorry, the bike share one. Okay. So having a public bike sharing system is a very long-term project. I have no idea how much it will cost yet because we haven't selected a system to go with, and the price varies a lot depending on the system. And depending on the system, there's a lot of variables, so I'm going to say no, I don't have a number, but I'll tell you this. It's going to be a significant amount of money, likely having funding from many different sources. Okay, I guess it's not a criticism of the project. I guess my concern would be that we'd spend that much money on getting them a feasibility study done, and then it wouldn't work out for financial reasons, and it just would, you know what I'm saying? I think it sounds like a great project. That's just my concern. I do understand your concern. I can discuss it more thoroughly with you later, but I will tell you this, from the support that I've received, when discussing this project, not only with students, but with administration, people from within the city of Ames, people are excited. And so getting them engaged and not just excited is the next piece. But if we can have people engaged in the project, I think we have a good chance of success. Oh, that's awesome. That's all I was wondering. Okay.
Any further questions for our speaker?
Okay, is there any further business for open forum? At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last 2 weeks, subject to the changes that were discussed earlier. Senator Bauer. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the last 2 weeks. UC has been called. Is there any objection to UC? Motion carries. We're now in special orders and on Senate Order 2013-2-054 SD, seating an SUV senator.
All right, Senate Order 2013-2-054 SD, titled Seating of SUV Senator. Whereas the graduate professional has an open Senate seat, and whereas the SUV Council has nominated Megan Black to fill this vacant seat, we therefore order that Megan Black be seated as an SUV Senator, and we further order that Megan Black immediately assumes all rights and responsibilities of the GSB Senator as delineated in government law. So Megan, if you want to step up to the podium, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan Black. I'm a junior here at Iowa State and I'm studying elementary education. This is actually my first year at Iowa State. I'm a transfer student from Ellsworth Community College. The reason why I joined
GSB is because at Ellsworth, I was really involved. I was actually the president of our student senate there. So I thought this was the perfect opportunity to represent my community and where I live, and I'm very excited to get involved.
Senator Ross?
Yes, Senator Carroll brought to my attention that whereas the graduate professional has an open Senate seat, that should be the SUV council. So I'd like to make an amendment to that unless we want to make a friendly amendment.
So, you move to amend it? Okay, so the amendment would change the graduate professional to...
I'll wait till she brings that back. I know SUV, what do you want?
SUV council?
Yeah.
So change graduate professional to SUV council. It's been moved and seconded to amendment. We're now in discussion of the amendment. Question use.
There is no SUV council.
SUV what?
It would just be SUV, just FYI.
Amend to amend.
Yeah. I'll accept it as
And a
that.
second cost.
Okay, can I go question now? Okay. Are we voting that?
We would have to vote on it because it is an amendment. We're on discussion of the amendment.
Question?
Second.
You see.
Still need council for a second senator.
Are we good? UC has been called on the amendment. Is there any objection to unanimous consent on the amendment? Amendment passes. We're now back to discussion of the bill as a whole. Senator Kensler.
I think we can't just use very qualified, we know the current rules, I'm going to call the question.
Second, you see.
You see.
Question has been called and seconded. Unanimous consent has been called. Is there any objection to UC? Bill passes. We're now on Senate Order 2013-2-055 SD, seating the graduate senator. Okay.
Chair, would you call to remind senators now, so they talk about normal doing business, because we are currently right now.
Yes, that is possible. Okay,
Okay. Senate Order 2013-2-055 SD, title, seating a graduate senator. Go figure. Whereas the graduate professional student senate, GPSS, had one open seat, and whereas GPSS has selected Barat Akrabad to represent graduate students, be it therefore that Barat Akrabad be seated as a graduate senator, and be it further ordered that Barat Akrabad immediately assumes all rights and responsibilities as a senator as delineated in government law. And so, we may approach the podium and call the movement.
Hello everyone, I'm Bharat Agrawal. I'm a PhD student in aerospace engineering. I joined last year. Before coming here, I've been working in industry for 5 years, so I figured, and I used to do administrative stuff. So I thought this is a good opportunity and place for me to contribute, to be a bridge between the undergrads and grad students. So yeah, here I am.
Senator Doherty.
Well, I just saw this man talk and I really like him. So I'm going to call a question.
Question has been called and seconded. UC has been called. Is there any objection to UC? Bill passes. Senate Order 2013-2-056 SD, seeking the UROC.
Whereas the United Residents off campus gets a city council on the Senate seat, and whereas UROC has selected Elijah Allocation to be representatives to the GSB
Larry said earlier, it's delicious without the LI. I'm a sophomore in political science. I've been previously involved with my honor society, Alpha Lambda Delta. I'm the treasurer and charity event coordinator for them. When I was offered this position, I accepted because I felt it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, given my interest in pursuing a career in public administration and public policy later on. So, thank you.
Vice Speaker Scott.
Seeing as nobody has any questions for Elijah, I will call the question.
UC.
Questions been called and seconded. UC has been called. Is there any objection to UC? Motion carries. Senator Walsh.
This time I'd like to make a motion to re-enter open forum as someone who has just come in that wants to speak to Senate.
Second.
Then a motion to re-enter open forum has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? UC has been called. Well, we need question first. Okay, question's been called and seconded. UC has been called. Is there any objection to UC? Motion carries. We're now back in open forum. Go ahead. And please state your name for the clerk.
My name is Shannon Coates, and I'm the director of ISU Ambassadors. And I'm here today to pass out some thank you notes so that we can express our gratitude to some of our state senators and representatives because they do really great work. They're incredibly dedicated to Iowa. Almost every session, our senators and representatives spend extra time after they stop getting paid during the session to keep working on legislation. They've also, during the last session, passed some laws on tuition set-asides, which is something that we lobbied very hard for last year. We are one of the only states that has a balanced budget and are in the green. So we might also want to contend for some good fiscal responsibility. So I'll pass those around really quick. If you're interested in them, if you're not, please hand them back to me because these are really nice thank you cards. But I encourage everyone to write to their own senator or representative. If you don't know who they are, you can go onto the Iowa website, the Iowa legislative website, and type in your address, and it will tell you who your senator or representative is. And if you're an out-of-state student, just leave it blank, and we will send it to a senator or representative for you.
Vice Speaker Snow.
Thank you.
You may.
Thanks for coming out, Shannon. Just to let everybody in the Senate know, since a lot of you haven't been around long enough to have experienced the efforts of Iowa State, the ISU ambassadors, what Shannon is tasked with here is leading up an organization that will, during the legislative session, go down to Des Moines periodically and speak with legislators. If we have any concerns, pass them on, of course, pass anything on from them to us, and so on and so forth. We've done a lot of different things in years past, everything from the thank you notes on up to writing legislation. So we've done quite a bit of things through the Iowa State Ambassadors. The main thing here is this is something that we do every year, and this is not unusual. This isn't, if you've never seen this, you kind of wonder what the heck's going on here. Believe it or not, the legislators do receive these, and as one who has worked quite a bit with legislators, these things, they do notice these things. I've heard from legislators directly that they have received these, they've thanked us for them, they thank me on behalf of them for these things. So if you are all interested in this, please don't hesitate to do it. It isn't a political thing. We are a board of regents school, so we're intimately linked with the legislature.
And they really enjoy personal.
They do, yes.
It means a lot more. Another thing that I'd like to address briefly is an open forum that ISU Ambassadors is holding on November 8th from noon to 4. We're still receiving confirmation in our RSVPs, but Senator Herman Kurbach will be there. Representative Hessler told me that she would like to be there. We're still hearing back from some Board of Regents members and some of the other representatives and senators. So it'd be really great if we could have a strong showing of students and discuss some really important issues at the open forum. There will also be food. So.
Yeah,
Do we have is there a location on that yet?
Yeah, it will be in the gold room.
Are there any further questions for Director Gross?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll collect the thank you notes at the end.
Now on Senate Order 2013-2-052 SG, seating members of Rules
Senate Order 2013-2-052 SG, seating members of the Rules Committee unless Mr. Peterson wants to. You want to read it? Seating members of the Rules Committee by law 7.5.3.2.2 requires. Okay, and I will motion to open the floor for nominations.
The floor is now open for nominations. Nominations to serve on Rules Committee. Senator Boss.
I would like to nominate Senator Johnson.
Would you be opposed to doing me a favor? Okay, I can't believe all this because we don't have the quorum, but I need.
Senator Lane.
I'd like to nominate Senator Nygaard.
Kathleen, it's gonna be, so I'm gonna give you my card.
Senator
Like,
I yield, I'm done, sorry.
sorry, I appreciate
Senator
it.
Bauer.
Move to nominate Senator Lindbergh.
Vanilla, vanilla.
Senator Boss.
Motion to close the
Yes.
floor for nomination.
Thank you.
We move to close the floor for nominations. Is there any objection? Okay, we have three nominees, Senator Johnson, Senator Nygaard, and Senator Blanchard. If anyone has, Senator Bauer.
May I address the nominees?
You may.
Do you see the bylaws as black and white or gray?
Senator Johnson.
I'd say I see them as gray. Although I think with the, you have to bring a technical point that really anything other than strict is gray. I think that there's room for interpretation, but at the same time, I think that there's a lot of value in the process of reviewing the bylaws every year, making them clearer so that they can become closer to black and white. But there's obviously the need for gray. It's sort of perfect, the bylaws are perfect, and circumstances.
Senator Nygaard.
I view them as black and white, but I do feel that it is also the duty of the Rules Committee to look at them at the proper times and see how they are fit to the time that we are in, and amend those that no longer are accurate.
Senator Blanchard.
I also view them as gray. Basically, what's already been said.
Senator Turhall.
Could the nominees please list their current GSB involvement, whether it be in a committee or otherwise?
Senator Johnson.
My current GSB involvement is in this. I'm also involved in the Committee on Lectures, and I serve on the Academic Standards and Admissions Committee.
Senator Nygaard.
I am currently only on the ad hoc committee.
Senator Blanchard.
The University Affairs Committee, as well as the Lectures Committee, and the Transportation Advisory Council.
And the Dining Committee.
And the Dining Committee.
And Asset.
And Asset. I was hoping that question wouldn't come up.
Point of information to the chair, does an ad hoc committee fulfill your requirement for committees?
No, it does not. I like how they have Senator Ross.
May I address some questions to the nominees?
You may.
Thank you. I'll start with Senator Johnson. How many years will you continue to be on or not years, how many sessions will you plan to continue to be on GSB for?
I'm graduating this spring, but I'm not planning to go anywhere before then.
Okay, till the spring? Okay. Senator Blankenberg?
At the moment, it would be at least another full year after this current year is up, so.
So 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay. And for Senator Nygaard?
I am a freshman, so I still have 3 full years at Iowa State, so.
You plan on keeping those years on GSB? All right. All right. Now you'll
In the interest of the half dozen student groups that are currently waiting on us right now, I'm going to table current bill.
Objection.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to table the bill that we are currently on. This is a debatable bill, or debatable motion, excuse me. Senator Bauer.
I think if we've gone this far, we should continue straightforward from here. I understand Senator Fitton's argument, but since we've already gone through the process this far, I think it'd be good for us to continue. And,
Senator Ross.
Yeah, I was going to continue with that. We already tried to table this to general orders. I don't see why we have to revisit this again, so I will call the question.
Question has been called and seconded.
On the tabling.
On the motion to table. Is there any, okay. Seeing no objection to the question, we'll move into voting on whether or not we will table this bill. If you would like to table it, you'll vote yes. If you don't want to table it, you'll vote no. Please raise your placard high for yes, if you would like to table it. Down. Placards up for no. Down. Placards up for abstentions. By a vote of 3 to 23 to 3, we will not table this bill. We're still on discussion of sitting members on Rules Committee. We're currently discussing the nominees. Senator Kensler.
Moving on.
Senator Johnson.
I don't know, is it in order for me to ask the questions myself and the other nominees? Is that the thing I can do? I suppose I should know these sorts of things, but you know.
Questions?
She wants to ask herself as well as the
Okay, well, I guess I'll just speak on my own behalf and they're welcome to, I just wanted to give all of us the opportunity to say just a little bit about ourselves, I guess that's all I needed, nothing too elaborate. So I guess just some background on why I specifically want to be on the Rules Committee and welcome what you have to say as well. I guess I've attended the last 4 or 5 Rules Committee meetings and I was initially going as part of the process that my bills went through, but additionally beyond that, then I found myself intrigued and have been making a point to be in West Lost around 6 on Monday evenings when I don't have other commitments. So I guess sort of for the personal reason I'd like to be on the Rules Committee is I feel that I'm a very detail-oriented, analytical person, and I love having an aptitude for laws, application, etc. Just sort of like many of you in the poli-sci major is sort of related to that. So I think that as elected for the first time last March, I've been a senator for several months now, I think I would bring a moderately experienced but still fairly fresh, obviously, perspective to the Rules Committee. And I guess another thing I want to note is that before this, I was involved in residence hall leadership for the previous 3 years before moving to Fredericton Court. So last year, as Barton Lane Freedom Hall Council president, I was primarily responsible for undertaking a large-scale and very much needed rewrite of our Hall Council Constitution. Spent many hours reviewing the Constitution, rewriting it to be clearer, more updated, more thorough, and more helpful in general. Many of you have been on health councils, are probably fairly familiar with the outdatedness of those constitutions. So anyways, I feel that the end result, and the rest of my health council agreed, on it being a clearer, cleaner, more effective constitution that would serve the whole well going forward. And so I guess similarly, as a Rules Committee member, my goal would be to help make the bylaws clearer, cleaner, more effective, etc. It seems like, in my perusal of the bylaws thus far, it seems like there's some sections that maybe are overly vague, some parts that are outdated or under-enforced that really is a little bit of improvement, and I'd love to be part of the review process this year to help set a strong course for GSB going forward.
Just I would like to move that nominees in the room so we can discuss.
Second.
Is there any objection? Nominees, please step out of the room while we discuss. Someone will come get you when you're done discussing. Senator Kessler.
All right, just to speak on the candidates, I think they're all more than qualified, quite honestly. Where it comes down to for me, where I'm going to place my vote is twofold, or I think it's twofold. One, there's only one candidate that does not have a committee, which I think we should always give preference to a person who doesn't have a committee assignment versus giving somebody more than one. And secondly, from being on Rules Committee for quite some time now, I've noticed that there's not a lot of, currently there's not a lot of young senators on Rules Committee. So essentially what I'm trying to say is after this batch of Rules Committee is gone, I don't see a lot of people stepping up. And so I would like to voice my opinion for Senator Nygaard because she will be around for more than a year or so, which is something that I think the other candidates cannot say.
Senator Bauer.
Yeah, I also support, or offer my support, rather, for Senator Nygaard. I like how she's the only one that sees the rules in black and white, that our rules are in place for a reason, that they're not just there for us to follow sometimes and not follow other times. So her being the only nominee that saw the rules that way, that'll be one reason I'm supporting her. The other, like Senator Kempfer said, she's going to be around, a lifer, if you would, in GSB. So it'll be good to have continue. On the Rules Committee, she seems very qualified. She's very intrigued with rules. So we'll be for Senator Nygaard.
Senator Doherty.
I would like to offer my support to Senator Nygaard as well, but I will say that she also expressed interest in PR, and that's also coming up soon. And Krista seems to show that she really wants to be on this committee as well. So I'm kind of torn between the two. One needs a committee and one really wants to be on a committee. So I just kind of want to throw that out there.
Senator Hall.
I tried to offer my support for Senator Nygaard. I've sat next to her a couple of meetings now. She's very sharp. She's picked up stuff very quickly. I feel like she'd be a great fit for rules. And
Senator Boss.
Yeah, the question.
No.
Or,
Boss of boss.
I said a boss, but we can go Senator Boss.
I don't want to.
I yield.
Okay. Yeah, the point of my question, I was going to ask actually first, I believe Senator Charles beat me to it, was how many committees everyone served on. And Nygaard is the only one that doesn't have a committee. And so if she doesn't get this one, she'll have to be looking somewhere else. We have an opportunity, though, to let her take this position. As to the comment with Doherty, there might be a senator for the next slot that doesn't have a committee as well. And so that's something to consider. And what we had discussed at Doherty will be, or not Doherty, Nygaard will be here for quite some time, and I do see the issue that Senator Kensel brought up, that we do need some continuation of membership in the rules. It's better to have more seasoned members. We got to start from young. So I will go.
Senator Abbas.
I would like to offer my support to Senator Johnson. Who already spoke out.
but before I say why I support Senator Johnson, I would like to actually say I agree with Senator Kessler. We're not set right now. And yes, we do need younger people on Rules Committee, which is actually one of the reasons you guys voted me in the first time. So I do agree with that. But at the same time, let's also keep in mind that Senator Kessler, as much as it saddens me, will be leaving in a couple months. And there will be an opening in Rules again for Senator Nygaard. And Senator Johnson, I do support her because has been to every committee meeting since at least I was nominated and on Rules. Not saying she went much more than me, but she went there most of them. And she's just very qualified. And as Senator Doherty has already said, she really wants this, and she's more than qualified. And don't think anyone can disagree on that point. I yield.
Senator Fitton.
Vice Speaker, so do you have anything?
I'm just sergeant at arms. I can't
Oh,
talk.
gotcha.
I'm the vice chair of Rules Committee, so I have no opinion.
I wasn't going to make a comment, but I was inspired by Senator Ross's commentary. I think it's important to note not only how qualified someone is, but how much they can grow and lead in a position as well. And I think Senator Nygaard, as a freshman, will really find an opportunity for personal growth in this position. I do think Senator Johnson is eminently qualified for this position as well. With that, I'm going to call the question and ask that the nominee is free to.
We will now do a roll call vote. When your name is called, you will say the last name of the nominee that you are voting for. As a reminder, the three nominees are Johnson, Nygaard, and Blankenberg. Are there any questions before we begin the voting process?
As a point of information to the chair, how many senators do we have seated currently? Or, yeah, president.
President?
President. I'm sorry, president.
I'll have to count to see. Um, 29, Senator Kessler.
Thank you.
So, that would be, it's 15, so 15. Yeah, it should be 15 votes. So in order to have the name fill blank, a senator would need 15 votes. We're now going to vote. As a reminder, say the last name. Abbas.
Johnson.
How do you say Agrul? Okay. Agrul.
Johnson.
Alexander. Sorry. Bauer. Benzoni.
Johnson.
Black. Nygaard. Breitbart.
Nygaard.
Birch.
Johnson.
Doherty.
Johnson.
Debates.
Nygaard.
Pisak.
Nygaard.
Fitton.
Johnson.
Foley.
Nygaard.
Renewable. Nygaard. Johnson.
Abstain.
Kensler.
Pass.
Kearns.
Nygaard.
Lang.
Nygaard.
Nygaard.
Abstain.
Osborne.
Negative.
Parkinson. Peterson. Plattenberg.
Abstain.
Schulte.
Johnson.
Snell.
Abstain.
Turhall.
Nygaard.
Voss.
Nygaard.
Walsh.
Nygaard.
Williams. Kensler.
Nygaard.
Peterson.
Abstain.
Did I miss anyone's vote? By a vote of 15 for Nygaard, 7 for Johnson, and 1 for Plattenberg, Nygaard's name will fill the blank.
Question.
Second.
Question has been called and seconded on the bill. Unanimous consent has also been called. Is there any objection to use? With that, this bill passes. We're now on Senate Order 2012-2.053 seating members of the PR committee.
Title, seating member of the Public Relations Committee.
Motion to.
All right, I will open the floor for nominations.
There was a second. The floor is now open for nominations. Sorry. Senator Voss.
I move to nominate Michael Bates. Yeah, nominate Michael Bates.
I accept.
Abbas.
I'd like to nominate Senator Black.
Do you accept? Senator Voss, do you yield?
No, I'm sorry, I yield.
Senator Voss.
Motion to close.
Check.
I withdraw.
Senator Doherty.
Nominate.
I gave you a pronunciation.
I know,
at the
but
beginning.
I can't remember.
Do you accept?
Yes. Senator Delicious.
That would be so much easier. Are there any further nominations or placards that I don't see? Senator Kensler.
Motion closed floor.
Floor is now closed for nominations. If you have questions for the candidates, now is for time. Senator Voss.
Yeah, sure. May I address some questions to the nominees?
You may.
All right, I'll start with Senator Deschutes. What are your qualifications for the public relations? Just for information, I'm vice chair in public relations, so I do have an interest in this. What are your qualifications to be on the public relations committee?
Well, I've been serving, as I said earlier, on my honor society board as the treasurer and charity event coordinator. As one of the primary executive board members, I'm responsible for getting the word out there. I know how to connect with people, how to build a good reputation for an organization.
Who's the next one? Senator Black. Okay, Senator Black, what are your qualifications for the public relations?
As I mentioned, my previous work in my other student senate at Ellsworth as president, it was my responsibility to connect with other students and kind of get their ideas and perspectives on what can be changed at our school. And in addition, I was also a student ambassador, so I had to work with many people in the admissions office. So I really got kind of a perspective on what students want from their school and what they need.
Okay. And Senator Bates, what are your qualifications for the public relations position?
I'm a journalism major with a PR emphasis first off. I've had an internship with Athletics Communications for multiple years. I've been in charge of all the PR for the wrestling program here, which is a very prominent organization with a national following. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I yield.
Senator Bauer.
Being the chair of the Public Relations Committee, I also have an interest in the nominees. So I'd like to address the nominees with a question. Being that PR committee is the top prestigious committee on this governing body, what can you bring to PR committee that you think is essential that we carry out in the GSB?
Senator Bates.
Like I just said, with my internship at the wrestling program, I have a lot of experience. I've dealt with a lot of responsibility, PR-wise, the last couple of years. I just feel like I'm the most qualified. And yes, it is a paid internship also. So, yeah, very professional.
Black.
Can you repeat the question?
Just what could you bring to the committee that would help us improve our outreach mission?
I would definitely define myself as very motivated and go-getter, and I really like to listen to what other people think they would like to have to bring to the university. And as a new student, I have also some perspectives of my own that I would like to bring to the committee.
And Senator Deschamps?
Yes. Congratulations.
As a fresh senator, I think in short I can bring a fresh perspective to things. I know that's very often a critical thing in public relations.
Senator Lang.
This question is for Senator Bates.
You may.
With your wrestling internship, is that going to prevent you from coming to meetings? Like, are you on the road with them, or do you?
Yeah, but our tournaments and duels are on weekends. So I'm here,
So,
generally is not counted up. We get Tuesday night meeting at 7, I believe is what it is.
All right.
Senator Fitton. Senator Doherty.
May I address the nominee?
You may.
Hello, nominee. I was just wondering if you had any specific ideas or things you think would be interesting to see happen to increase the equity of GSB. And then another quick one is the meetings are on Tuesdays. Does that time slot work for you? We'll start with
Last year, I know that you guys put on an event, Meet Senator Day, to kind of get the word out about GSB. And I think it'd be good to do more events like that to help get the word out on GSB and what we do. So.
Senator Black.
I think coming in again as a new student, just kind of put a new perspective on GSB and make it more accessible to students. Really get the word out of where we are in our office hours and how students can come to us with their ideas.
Yeah, my idea is similar to hers. We need to make ourselves a lot more open, a lot more transparent, a lot more accessible, because what we represent seems to be often a very towering principle. And so by opening it up and making it more accessible to students, I think it would be the best thing for us to do.
Thank you.
Senator Fitton. So this time for nominating will come get you in discussions. Now discussing the nominees. Senator Fuson.
Personally, I think I'd like to encourage vote for Senator Bates, just because after hearing about his work with the wrestling team, I think that's obviously some serious experience. Obviously, if his role was dealing with PR, then he must have some credentials. So I would encourage a vote for Senator Bates.
Senator Benzoni.
While I cannot speak to Senator Black's past specifically, I don't believe that we can ask for anyone more qualified than an ex-president of Student Senate, especially one who has the resume that she claims to have and
I think she really brings in an excellent outside perspective coming from a body like hers. I think she will bring great experience with the breakfast perspective to get back and forth.
Senator Voss.
Yes, I think where I'm going to start with this. I guess I'll first start off, I believe the two senators, the new ones just seated tonight, are at a slight disadvantage, I think. And that's based on that they were just seated. When I was just seated, I felt that it required some time to find what actually committee you wanted to be on. Senator Bates has been here for several meetings and he's filled out, and he does not have a committee yet. That is still pending. There's still plenty of time for the other two senators to find a position on public relations, or not on a different position or different committee assignment. As a member of public relations, and I hope the others do speak up as well, I hope you take what I'm saying into consideration, means that I'll be the one working with them. We will be working with them. And I feel that Senator Bates is the most qualified, as he is a paid professional working for Iowa State, promoting the public relations of a wrestling team, the entire wrestling team. And I think that's something to consider. And with that, I will yield.
Senator Senator Walsh.
I'm moving on.
Senator Doherty.
I will also go out to say that with Senator Bates being on the wrestling PR team, that's really awesome. That's kind of like his career right now. Journalism, we do have same here, and she knows a little bit about that, but that's always something we can use in PR. What? Don't look at me. So I think that someone who comes from journalism that may be able to help us a little bit, because that's kind of like the job, is to kind of look at things from perspectives and give their feedback on it. So that's, I think that's a good quality for him. I can't really speak on the other two because I don't know them that well. But the base is still pending at committee, and I think it would be good to get him seated, especially if he really does PR committee at this point.
Senator Walsh.
Thank you. Speaking as a highly motivated member of PR, like all of us, I would like to say not just on Senator Bates' experience with PR, but just in getting to know him over the course of the last 5 weeks or whatever he's been on. He definitely seems like a highly motivated individual. I feel like he's the kind of guy that anything you ask him to do, he'll get it done. I think he'd be a great member for PR, and I would urge your vote for him. I'll yield.
Senator Fitton. Moved and seconded to have nominees come back in. Is there any objection? Bring them in. I guess I'll wait for Actually, Senator Williams, before you leave, I'm going to call on you to vote as a Republican. So same thing as last time, say the last name of the senator that you would like to vote for. Bates, Black, and Deschutes. Excellent. Speaker Williams has to step out of the room, so I'm going to call on her first. Speaker Williams. Black. Okay. Abbas.
Black.
Agrula. I'm going to write this down. Bauer. Benzo.
Black.
Black. Breitbart.
Debate.
Birch.
Debate.
Doherty.
Debate.
Deschutes. Piesek.
Debates.
Fitton.
Same.
Foley. Debates. Grenadier.
Debates.
Johnson.
Black.
Kaufman. Oh, sorry. My bad. Kensler. Osborne.
Debates.
Parkinson.
Debates.
Peterson.
Pass.
Plantenberg.
Debates.
Schulte.
Debates.
Snell.
Abstain.
Turhall.
Debates.
Voss.
Debates.
Walsh.
Yes.
Kensler.
Black.
Kearns. Who else passed? Walsh. Peterson. Okay, Peterson.
Abstain.
Walsh.
Debates.
Did I miss anyone else's vote? Okay. With 16 votes for debates, 5 for Black, 0 for Decius, debates' name will fill the bill. Question has been called and seconded on the bill as a whole. UC has also been called. Is there any objection to unanimous consent? This bill passes. We're now on general orders. Senate Bill 2013-2-049F, special allocations recommendations, line 24.
Alright. Senate Bill 2013-2-049F. Special allocation recommendations for fiscal year 2014. Whereas the special allocations, oh wait, it's a second read, don't read it, you already read it. Okay. Senator Fitton.
I guess I didn't actually have any.
Senator Voss.
Yeah, unless Finance Director Radisky wanted to speak anything about it, I was just going to talk about it if you weren't.
Sure. What would you like me to talk about?
Oh, just basically how little controversy we had in developing this special allocation bill, and we didn't have to balance the budget, and it's pretty straightforward. About that?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go.
So I would make those same comments. Basically, that Finance Committee has seen all of these budgets, and spoke with all of these organizations on their requests. And as of my knowledge, I have not heard of any budgets that were requested to be pulled, unless there is a surprise awaiting for me and somebody's offer going up. But if you have questions on the budgets, I think I have representatives from all the organizations present at this meeting in case you did have a question. But that is pretty standard procedure for allocations bills. So at this time, I would yield to any questions about the process itself. As was mentioned, there was no budget balancing done.
Tony.
Senator Kensler.
Yeah, I would just like to commend Finance Committee on the progress that they put in a couple Saturdays ago now.
Sundays.
I looked over the printout that you have provided down to us from the office space. I think they did a phenomenal job seeing how they handled and voted balance the budget. With that, I'm going to call a question on the bill.
Question has been called and seconded on the bill. We are moving into voting. As a reminder, since this is a finance bill, we cannot call UC, so we will do a roll call vote. Abbas.
Yes.
Agruma. Bauer.
Yes.
Benzoni.
Yes.
Black. Yes. Brightburn.
Yes.
Birch.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
Decius. Decius.
Yes.
Sorry. I'll have to write it down. Spisak.
Yes.
Fitton.
Yes.
Granadorova,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kensler,
Yes.
Kearns,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Nygaard,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Parkinson, Peterson,
Yes.
Clantenberg,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Snell,
Yes.
Turhall,
Yes.
Voss,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Williams. Yes. By a vote of 28 to 0, this passes.
Point of information to the chair, I believe you just lost one.
Just now.
Yes.
We can move into discussion of the next bill, so we will do so. We're now on Senate Bill 23. Vice Mayor Snell.
Yeah, for you guys for leaving, thank you so much for coming out. I know you didn't have to do anything, I know you waited for us, but we do appreciate you being here. So I apologize for making you wait, but at the same time, thank you. So we just wanted to send you out of here. We know you're here, we appreciate it.
Bye, have a great night.
It is kind of shitty,
Senate Bill 2015-2-046F, funding ISU Rass. Did I say that correctly, Rass? Ross?
Funding ISU Ross. I have a member of the group present. If they'd like to speak on the request. Committee.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, if you could state your name for the clerk, that would be great.
Yeah, my name is Divya Nabi. I'm currently the president of ISU Rass. I guess, I don't know how this usually works, but I just talk about my club and just go on? Okay. ISU Rass is a competitive dance group. We're currently performing on Diwali, and we got invited to perform at Drake, perform at Drake Diwali. We performed several performances, like around our community, Ames community, and also at ISU. I guess that's basically it. And the reason I'm here is to get hopefully funding for new costumes for this semester or next semester for the coming year. I don't know, anything else? Questions? Feel free to answer.
Vice Speaker Snell?
Yeah, my address to the speaker.
You may.
Very simple question, I know you know the answer. Can you spell your name for our clerk, please?
Yeah, Divya, and last name Navi, Navi.
Thank you.
Senator Creighton.
Cornwall.
Is that what you're going to call their names or roll call?
You don't have quorum?
Okay, we're going to do a quorum call.
I withdraw.
Withdraw?
Yes.
Are we at quorum? Okay. Speaker Williams.
At this time, I'd like to propose the Finance Committee amendment, which strikes the line for travel to Des Moines competition and changes the shuttle to from 834.36 to 816.36, and that will be up to Where did I? You said 816. Sure, okay, then 1860, or 860.
Since the Finance Committee amendment, it does not need a second, but we are now on discussion of the amendment. As a reminder, the amendment is to strike the line that is travel to the Des Moines competition, and it would change the total on the bill from $834.36 to $816. We're now on discussion of the amendment. Senator Fitt.
This is no the Senate. This was done because, Divya, correct me if I'm wrong, you're no longer going on this competition, correct?
No, we don't need funding for, to go to Drake. It's, okay, so the situation, what happened, before I met with the finance committee, we were invited to Drake, and then, actually, this morning, we got re-invited because we were double booked before, and then the other team canceled, so we got re-invited to Drake. And I understand that all of this happened, so we don't need funding for Drake. So we can cross that out.
With that, I need a public question on the amendment.
Question's been called and seconded on the amendment. Unanimous consent has also been called. Is there any objection to UC? Seeing none, the amendment passes. We're back in discussion of the bill as a whole. Senator Fitt, you still have the floor.
The group has met all their standards under P&C. We go through every budget that they have, all two of them on the OFP2.
Second.
Question has been called and seconded. We will now have a roll call vote. Please say yes if you would like to pass this bill and give the group the funding. No if you would not like to, and abstain if you have a bias for some reason. Abbas.
Yes.
Agruba.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Benzoni.
Yes.
Black. Yes. Breitbart.
Yes.
Birch.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
Keisha.
Yes.
Pisak.
Yes.
Fitton.
Yes.
Foley. Yes. Granazarova.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kensler.
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
Lang.
Yes.
Nygaard.
Yes.
Osborne. Parkinson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Blanford.
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Snell.
Yes.
Turhall.
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
By a vote of 28 to 0, this bill passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight and waiting for us. We're now on Senate Bill 2013-2.045F, allocating to KURE.
Can you say 0.5?
I sure did.
All right. Senate Bill 2015-2-045F, allocating to KURE. Yeah, this page, I saw access to that. And then I'll yield to the group to talk about the request.
Who's clerk? Marshall Hillman, Hilgeman, General Manager. So basically, ASCAP is the American Association of Composers, Artists, and Publishers. That's who we pay fees to for dealing with copyright stuff. Right, I guess. Sorry, a lot of you probably aren't completely familiar. So I'm representing KURE, the student radio station. So we pay fees to this
Order,
company.
please limit your side conversations and respect our speaker. Thank you. Continue. I apologize for
Oh, that's fine. Anyway, we pay them for copyright and licensing fees, so then it's generally accepted way to do it in the industry, so then artists then get paid from this company. And anyway, the gist is we normally have it included in our general allocations, and we gave you the amount we were expecting, and then we got a statement saying that the amount has changed. After looking into it, they had their information about Iowa State extremely wrong. They were under the assumption that there were under 1,000 full-time students, and we have a lot more than that. So the fees were adjusted as such. We classify as their highest level of market share, which is over 20,000 students. So that is why the amount has increased. So we're just looking for a special allocation to make up the difference. Open to questions, I guess.
Senator Walsh.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this was sent favorably from Finance, 8-0. It met the rules. I'll yield to Senator Voss. That's all.
may I address the group?
You may.
Marcia, you don't, I mean, will this be consistent, or do you think they'll try to stick it, or try to stick you for more to come later down the road?
Oh, yeah, so, finally getting statements from them, I got, they have figured the fees for the next, I want to say, 6 years. And so we have a statement for that for the next six years. So in general, allocation will be asking for the amount that that's what it will be, because they won't adjust any more. Like, we're already at the highest fee
tier,
yeah.
Okay. And I guess, I know the answer to this, but I'll ask you to it for the Senate. Is you have the documentation there. You had said you discussed a lot of it on the phone, but you have a lot of documentation.
Yes, I have an official statement of our billing since the 80s, showing that it has been previously much less, and then I also have a statement from them that is an excerpt from FCC regulation that they use for billing purposes.
I'll think about you.
Senator Benzoni.
Move down.
Vice Speaker Snow.
Move me down.
Senator Benzoni.
Okay. I am normally I'm a DJ at KURE, and I have rather enjoyed my time there, and so I can give nothing but a glowing endorsement for the radio station. And so with that, I'm going to call the question. Jack. I want to move down. Okay, I rescind my motion.
Vice Speaker Snow.
Yeah.
You may.
Marshall, can you tell me what does ASCA mean again?
It's the American Society for Composers, Artists, and Publishers.
Artists and what?
I can Google it. You can probably Google it.
Somebody got a figure?
Artists and publishers.
Authors, yeah.
Authors.
Yes.
Thank you. Love to.
Thank you. At this time, I just want to throw a real quick amendment to expand the acronym to reflect American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. These on the grounds that these bills are used for audit purposes in the future, an undetermined future, and they do last forever in the library. So we may someday somebody might not know what the heck it is.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. We are now on discussion of the amendment. Senator Kensler.
Question.
Second.
Second.
You see.
Question has been called and seconded on the amendment. Unanimous consent has also been called. Is there any objection to UC? Seeing none, the amendment passes. We are now back on discussion of the bill as a whole. Senator Abbas.
This is not a question, I just kind of want to say, I went to the KURE Fest, yes, and it was awesome. That's all. And that's why I'm kind of in support of this bill big time. And on a side note as well, Senator Kessler earlier mentioned his appreciation for Finance Committee's hard work. I want to say thank you. We did finance really hard.
Yeah, I'm going to say something on that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yes, I do.
Question. Second.
Question has been called and seconded on this bill. We'll now proceed to vote. Yes, if you want to pass this and fund KURE. No, if you don't want to, abstain. Is abstaining. Abbas.
Yes.
Agruba. Bauer.
Yes.
Benzoni. Black. Yes. Please limit side conversations so I can hear the yeses and nos. Thank you. Breitbart.
Yes.
Birch.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
Deschus.
Yes.
Deesek.
Yes.
Fitton. Foley.
Yes.
Granadilova.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kensler.
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
Lang.
Yes.
Nygaard.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Parkinson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Plantenberg.
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Snell.
Yes.
Turhoff.
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
By a vote of 27 to 0 to 1, this bill passes.
Thank you.
Senator Walsh?
Question of the chair, do we have any more groups that are here right now for anything on the agenda?
No.
Due to the fact that we are so close to a quorum, I would just like to make a motion to recess for 5 minutes to allow for everybody to take a bathroom break so we don't have to deal with people stepping out of the room and coming back in.
Second.
So,
It's been moved and seconded, and UC has been called to have a recess for 5 minutes. Please be back in here ready to resume at 9:16.
Good call, Walsh.
28 people. We currently have 28 senators present. So if you leave the room, we can't vote. So don't leave the room.
hence my recess.
That's why we have a recess.
Unless you don't want to.
No, Senator Corey is back there by the door. He'll stop you, and he's got that look in his eyes, and smile, he will stop you. Don't even try. Okay, with that, we'll resume. That's all I got. Speaker Williams.
Okay, so since we have quorum, and our next item, I will motion to postpone Senate Bill 2013-2-047F, transferring funds to the investment fund, as stated by our finance director previously. I would yield to Dan, who's the one that suggested that we.
Dan, why do you want to table the investment account things you want to You suggested you say that.
The investment transfer that I requested that you table. I requested it because I'm investigating whether we fulfilled our obligation, our verbal agreement with the Vice President for Student Affairs office when we looked to fund the insurance that allows student organizations to use university vehicles. And so our agreement is that we pay half, but I'm not sure that we have stepped up to the plate on that payment. And so I feel that we're going to do paperwork one way or another, and so we should probably do all the paperwork the correct way the first time. So if you would like to spend it out of the investment account, you can spend it out of there. Otherwise, it's got to come from somewhere. So I would like time to hash out and make sure that I have the complete understanding of the situation. But I would prefer another week to do that, as I was not able to ascertain the situation today. That came to my attention this morning. That I was looking through our records and was not able to find any transaction on that level. So that is why I would like at least 1 week. And I may ask for more if I come back next week and I'm not completed. So.
Thank you, Finance Director Rass. Was there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. So as a reminder, we're in discussion of whether or not you want to table this bill for 1 week. Question has been called and seconded. UC has been called. Is there any objection to unanimous consent? Motion carries. The bill will be tabled for 1 week. So table the bill for 1 week, just means we'll bring it up at the next meeting. When we call the question, it means that we're going to vote on a motion, and then when someone calls unanimous consent, it means like we're all in agreement, let's just do it without having to count votes. And so since Finance Director Radisky wanted another week to postpone it, that's what we did. I don't know if there's any specific questions.
But Richie Lauren also asked, or I'm making a motion to postpone Senate Order 2013-2-048SL, which is priorities of financial legislation, and postpone it for 1 week. This bill has actually been tabled in Finance Committee, so has not properly been able to be on the agenda as of right now. So I'd have to postpone it for 1 week and have it come out of Finance Committee.
Second.
Yep, it's been moved and seconded to table that bill, priorities of financial legislation, for 1 week. We are now discussing the motion. Senator Kenseth.
Second.
Question has been called and seconded. Unanimous consent has been called. Is there any objection to tabling this bill for 1 week? Seeing none, the motion passes. That will be tabled for 1 week. Before we move on to the next bill, Director Goes of the ISM Ambassadors, if you have completed your thank you to a legislator or senator, you can pass those towards the back table at this time. If not, please give them to President Hughes at the end of the meeting if you complete it before the end of the meeting, or feel free to drop them off with Mary in the office, or Spencer and I were in the office to give to Shannon at a later time. But please do complete those. Are there any questions regarding those? Once again, if you're done, you can pass them to me. Okay. Now on Senate Bill 2013-2-026Y, eliminating executive compensation.
Title, Senate Bill 2013-2-026Y. For those of you who are new, this bill's kind of been around for a while, so you may not have seen it. I did mention last week and the previous week that if you had any questions, that I was more than willing to sit down and talk with you. I know we've had extensive conversations with the executive branch, and as well as within Senate down in Western office space. However, being as that we're exactly at quorum tonight, I think that this bill deserves a fair debate, and seeing as how if one person would vote no, it would pull the whole thing up and it would fail. So at this time, I'm going to motion to table for 1 week.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table this bill for 1 week. Is there any discussion? Question has been called and seconded. Unanimous consent. Okay. There's been an objection to UC, so we will vote on whether or not to table this for 1 week. If you would like to table this for 1 week, you will raise your placard for yes. If you do not want to table it for 1 week, you will raise your placard for no. If you have a bias for some reason and would like to abstain, then you raise your placard for abstain. Are there any questions regarding the voting procedure? Placards up for yes. Down. Placards up for no. Down. Placards up for abstentions. By a vote of 22 to 6 to 0, the bill will be tabled for 1 week. Senate Order 2013-2-044Y, making all policies renewable.
Is this supposed to be -049 for both special allocations, recommendations, to 2014, and for supporting Green Company Housing?
There are some bills and things.
Okay. I see.
We're on bill.
Senate Bill 2013-2-044Y, title making all types of policies renewable. That's last week. We went over this last week, but I guess to train senators, I don't know if everyone was here last week. Basically, the deal is that the bylaws, chapter 4.15, there's a section that mandates that that the Code A bills have to be reviewed every year. They expire automatically. That's general government policies. I guess some of you weren't around last spring when we did that, but it happens at the first meeting. You go through and make sure that you still want to keep these policies around. My understanding of it as a relatively new senator is that it just helps to make sure all the policies are being followed, that people are aware of them, and that they're still current and make sense for the current Senate. So I just wanted to, this bill would add the other types of policies, not the election not the election procedures one, because that's more of a consistent thing. This is just add the policies and procedures to the executive branch, of the judicial branch, and of the legislative branch, which I think was my understanding of from the authors of the original bill and from talking to other senators, was really sort of the intent of the bill. This is just the way the bylaw bill, what ended up being written last year, it just didn't end up including that. So this is just to revise that to be more of a general bylaw, I guess. I guess we have any specific questions.
Vice Mayor Snow.
Thank you. Yeah, as Senator Johnson said, I wrote the original bill. This is incorrect. It was our oversight to not include these. So this is certainly in keeping, as she said, with the intent of the original bylaw change. So I absolutely support that. We missed the Rules Committee, and I guess I obviously don't think it's either. Having said that, since this is a bylaw bill, this requires 2/3 of seated senators.
Point of information to share, is this a bylaw bill?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's just a little more as positive further.
Since it's a bylaw bill, for you new folks, this will change the bylaws that requires 2/3 of seated senators to vote on. We have 2/3 of seated senators in here, so everybody has to vote unanimously yes in order for this to pass. I think this is a fantastic thing to correct, but if anybody has any doubts as to whether or not we'll pass it, I think we can entertain a motion to postpone it for a week.
Senator Boss.
Yeah, point of personal, whatever that's, that point. Yeah, because you didn't scroll the thing down for me.
Yes, it's a point of personal privilege.
Yeah. My brain. Hey, a little bit further out. Okay. May I address a question to one of the secondary authors, Mr. Snell? Sure. When we make, what was the exact, you might have said this before, but what was the exact kind of the bill wording that we passed? It was in January, wasn't it, I think?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and that was, I failed, what was the loophole that we didn't do, that this is fixing? Can you explain that again in depth?
Right. Senator Kensler may wish to expound on this when I'm finished.
Okay.
So maybe perhaps reserve a question for him.
Sure.
What this did was first of all, policies often get forgotten. And we were, in theory, operating under several policies that were still enacted, that we had no idea what they were. And as time went on, we forgot about them, which technically put us out of order. Senator Kensler went back at least a decade and found several that were new to us. So one of the primary concerns of this correction was that every year policies would come back up for renewal, and that way they would always stay in the institutional memory of GSB. And as policies, in theory, are meant for temporary changes, perhaps an experiment with a policy before we codify it as a bylaw to make sure that it's what we want to do, and so on and so forth. So we felt that it wasn't something, since policies are serious and they do affect the legislative branch in perpetuity until they're voted away, that it was a good idea to constantly bring these up, and as times change, as the Senate changed, as our needs change, then we can adapt the policies as necessary or codify them in the bylaws themselves. I believe that was the main motivation, and I will again remind you to question Senator Kensler about that as well.
Yeah, if one of you guys remember gal too. Excuse me, Senator. The last bill, that did not pass unanimous. I mean, it got 2/3 obviously, but it didn't pass unanimous. And do we have how many senators? I just don't know if we're voting on this, one person could screw this up. So I don't know if we want to consider tabling it, but if we think we got used to it, I guess
Are
go
you
for
making
it.
motions, Senator Johnson?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to motion table it yet. I would like to have some information on that if I could ask one of the authors. Jake?
It's not really a question that I have no opinion on.
You have no opinion on tabling it? All right, well, I'll yield.
I would agree with
Johnson?
All I was gonna say is that I don't oppose tabling necessarily, if that's up to everybody else, but, this isn't really the same as the original bill. The original bill is what's putting us in to begin with. This is just adding code B, code C, and, code SL, bills and orders, which are rarely used, which is honestly probably why it was an oversight to begin with. So I see this as more just correcting a bylaw versus some sort of massive bylaw change. But, I mean, if there's anybody who would like a table, feel free to speak up before we waste more of our time. But
Right.
that's all I have.
I guess I was yielded. Can I not be yielded? I did say yield, and then I asked Johnson after that. I was going to ask another question
You're fine.
to Barry, or Vice Speaker. With the policies, when we discussed last year, there was like the dress code. I mean, what exact policies do you, I mean, I don't have the whole list. You know, the general policies that we'd be renewing? Voting on this right now?
Actually, I would refer you to Senator Kendler since he was speaker at that time.
Okay.
He would be the wrangler of the policy.
That's true. The wrangler.
Perspective looking at the moment. As Senator, since I still have the floor technically, as Senator Johnson said, this is just correcting an oversight. The bylaw is already in place, except we forgot about certain types of policies that we said that we never used. So this is just, all this is correcting that oversight.
Senator Kemser, go ahead and answer.
If I can ask, what was your question, Senator Ross, as far as the policies?
Yeah, what are the general policies that were,
Currently?
yeah, I mean,
Okay, so, yeah, just hear me.
yeah, the policies that were voted on.
Okay,
From a contextual perspective.
so I guess the policies that passed last time were the social networking policy, which was 2009-3-076, A, and 2006-3-075A, which was policy for speakers parking pass. There were two policies that were discarded because we didn't know they existed. In fact, one said that this is the official logo of GSB, it's attached, and then there was no attachment. So that's why these policies, speaking more in general, as Vice Speaker Snell said, was put in place so that we know, as Senate coming in, what policies we're bound by. Also, along the same lines of thinking, it's that policies just take a simple majority, where bylaws take a two-thirds vote. So we felt, at least it was my feeling at the time, that policy shouldn't be as permanent as the bylaws, because it clearly says that bylaws supersede any policy, and so we felt that if they have the same strength unless in direct contradiction to each other, perhaps policy shouldn't be as permanent and should be temporary.
Okay.
Senator Walsh.
Would the Vice Speaker yield to a question?
Please.
You already said this, but I just want to make sure I'm right on this. In order for this to pass, if we were going to it tonight, it would need unanimous consent if it was here right now.
Unanimous roll call vote, yes.
Okay. Even if this is something that we see as, an easy fix, or things going to pass, I still see it as an issue having to have everyone with a yes vote. Because, there could be those two people sitting there, I don't really know how I feel about this, but I don't really want to waste time. I have to vote yes because otherwise I just waste a bunch of time. I see it as horribly inefficient, and I would really urge tabling this tonight.
Senator Voss.
Motion to table bill for 1 week.
Second.
We move to secretary to table the bill for 1 week. We're now in discussion of that motion. Question has been called and seconded. You see it called? Objection has been made. We will do a roll call vote if you would like to table this for 1 week. Yeah, thank you. That's what I thought in my head, but it just came out that way. a placard vote. So if you'd like to vote yes, table this for a week, please raise your placard high or yes right now. Placards up high for yeses. Sorry. Up high for yeses still. Keep them high, keep them high, keep them high. Down. Placards up for no. Down. Placards up for abstentions. By a vote of 24 to 4 to 0, we will table this for 1 week. Senate Order 2013-2-049 SR, supporting Greek community household.
2013-049.
Guys, let's just be respectful, please. Not that hard. Continue, Senator Fitt.
Supporting Greek community household. This time, I believe.
Senator Kinsley.
May I address the question in front of the office?
Yes.
Could you explain, in light of the city council women's remarks, could you explain why this bill should still go?
I think from a city perspective, this is this is an opinion resolution. I believe it is the opinion of student extension and generally in the best interest of the students at Iowa State University to, for what Councilmember Victoria said, have basically the resolve clauses enacted, and they would be fitting for us to show the proper support in light of those comments as well. And I guess, I imagine you have a follow-up question here, so I'll just wait.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Sorry, I did not completely articulate that, so I do apologize.
Senator Turnbull.
In light of the comments made by City Councilwoman, I move to table this bill indefinitely.
Second.
That's Jed.
At this time, I'm going to refuse the duties of the chair to Speaker Williams.
All sorts of fun stuff.
You can call on other people if you want first. I can wait. Yeah, I'd like to wait.
Senator Ross.
Put me down, please.
Yeah, and generally, I guess, I don't think it's often said that I don't spend enough time in in office space, but apparently that is true this week. I'm generally just looking for context on why members believe it should be favored. So that's my value.
Senator Ross.
I'd just like to add too, can anyone actually tell us what the city councilman actually said? Just in general.
He was not here.
So what the city council said essentially was that it was in her opinion that this resolution had been made, unfortunately, of, and to use her terminology, fear that the city council was going to go through with allowing the group housing to be a part of the rental housing as per the code. And she expressed that, on her behalf, that for the council, they were not in that opinion, and they were actually trying to move forward and had said that they were moving forward in not allowing, or not wanting the group housing to be a part of the rental code. And so she thought that this resolution reflected something that was not occurring in her opinion.
Thank you, I yield.
Senator Schultz.
Yeah, I guess I'm against tabling this, just because I think we have all the information now. I think people want to table it just because we got new information, but that doesn't necessarily mean we should table it, I don't think. I think we could talk about it right now, and I think it's pretty clear that there isn't really an issue with the city, and that we should not table this, and realize that really this doesn't really apply to.
Notice to the body as well that this is a motion to postpone indefinitely, not just postpone for a week or a few weeks, but indefinitely. Vice Speaker Snow. Senator Sherrill.
All right, so I guess I'll explain why motion to table indefinitely. With the new information, I guess I feel that there's not a threat to the street housing situation right now. So I like to think that our resolutions have some weight to them and give a definite opinion of what the student body thinks. I think if we're throwing them around at issues that don't exist, I guess I don't see a point of passing this resolution.
I just wanted to comment on so today we had a city council member and a candidate for city council come in and speak to you on their perspective of this particular issue. But just keep in mind, based on my conversations with the city council liaison, Alex Harvey, who was here earlier, and some other conversations with city council members who were not here tonight, that particular perspective is not necessarily all-encompassing of the position for the entire city council. And so I would really hesitate to take those two opinions that were shared as kind of the statement on behalf of the council as a whole. I think that this body certainly has the opportunity to speak with one voice on this issue, which greatly affects a significant population of our student body. And I would just urge you to take those comments from those earlier visitors during open forum, maybe with a grain of salt. I'll yield.
Just to speak on the motion that we're on currently, not the bill as a whole, I think Senator Burrow is correct in proposing this motion because essentially, if we go off the assumption of what the city council person said was correct, and we vote this down, I have a feeling that it would be even worse for the Greek housing system, because we said, nope, we as students do not agree with this. And we do believe, well, they could infer that we do believe they should be part of the municipal housing or the rental housing. However, if we say, yes, we do agree, then it would also potentially have the possibility to come back and harm us because we could, then we'd be saying that, yes, we acknowledge there is a problem. And again, if we go off what the speaker said earlier tonight, there is no problem, but they would say that we see that there is. So I think this is possibly the best course of action we can take on as well at this time.
Does the speaker wish to speak at this moment or wait?
I'm still waiting. Thank you.
Senator Rass.
As a point of information for the chair, does this postponing the bill indefinitely requires 2/3, correct?
Correct.
Okay, with that information, another question to the chair. If the bill is postponed indefinitely, can it be brought back? Or is it essentially killed and we can't do anything about it? I mean, I see the merits of the bill, but I don't see the merits right now. I mean, I don't see, it could be worked on, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, to be postponed indefinitely means that it cannot be brought back this session.
This
but
session.
it can be in the next session.
Right. Okay. All right, well, with that, I get it.
Senator Lang.
Moving on.
Senator Bell.
I do think that this has merit. I do think we should vote on it. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they are actually voting on this in the city council next week. So there still is a possibility that this, the housing can be redistributed or however, what window they use for that. So there is still a possibility that this could be turned around to city council or go either way. And like President, you stated, we heard one opinion from one city council member. She obviously can't speak for the whole council, so I do believe that there is merit in us discussing this. We have to make sure we're representing the students. We can't just go off of what the councilwoman said, even if it is true. So I'm in support of discussing this bill.
I want to counter a couple points if I may. Thank you, Senator Bauer. It was referred to staff 2 weeks ago during the city council meeting. The directive that was given to the city staff was to find a way that it could possibly fit into the exemption. And so I think that plays into specifically what Senator Bauer said. Both of these candidates, and you might have noticed some kinds of controversy that wasn't fully disclosed. Within the past couple of weeks, there's been rumors and controversy over potentially absentee ballots being distributed through fraternities and sororities with directives to vote for certain candidates. So I'm not questioning completely the integrity of the two speakers we had before us, but there are a number of motives that incite their comments this evening, many of which you're not aware of. Second of all, I heard the comment that this is facing an issue that doesn't exist or it doesn't hold weight. I think that's irrelevant. One of two reasons, because some weeks ago we passed a resolution that dealt with the tuition freeze, which was essentially going to happen, but it faced an issue that we didn't really, or we can lobby for. It's the same instance we can lobby for it in this instance, specifically because if you do read the bill, there's a resolve clause which speaks about member-only housing, which is very significant, and I would be willing to completely disclose why that is if we were to have a full and fair debate on that instead of tabling it. And then, just with that being said, I think there are ulterior motives behind tabling it. I think people want to table it because they don't want to have a no vote against this. So I just think it deserves a debate whether it is yes or no from the side. With that idea.
Senator Johnson.
I was just going to address your question to Senator Fenton, which is only half relevant anymore. But I was wondering, so what exactly does the voting timeline look like on City Council then? Like, what exactly are they voting on and when?
Next week, I believe, and someone with more knowledge could correct me if I'm wrong, I talked with City Council Liaison Harvey. The directive would be, they directed the staff, what I said earlier, but the vote next week could be potentially on an exact, on a full exemption from chapter which doesn't currently stands. That doesn't include, though, the next classification of it, which is why the resolve clause that I was speaking of earlier is also important beyond just the exemption.
Okay. And then I was curious, so did she give you a different impression on how the city council members are going to be voting? Because I thought she had when I talked to her, but I could be completely misremembering. When I talked to Ellen and I had gotten briefly, I had gotten the impression that she felt that the city council was likely to be on our side, but it's possible I'm completely misremembering. So I was curious if you had a clear understanding of
I had
that.
the same, I guess, general feeling from Ms. Harvey that
Oh, that she has all the information.
yeah, she felt that it did have support within the council, but I don't know if that's generally true.
Okay.
All right, is the current motion.
Senator Platenberg.
Maybe now.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. I concur with Senator Fitton. This is a big enough issue that it deserves a debate. In the end counting of things, we may vote against it, and that's fine. But I think we need to have a discussion about what this is about. I don't think anybody in here understands this 100%. I certainly don't, and I would like to hear some more information. I kind of get the feeling, too, that there are a few senators in the room, and I actually directly heard a few senators say this. They're a little uncomfortable with the wording, and I think Senator Fitton will acknowledge that perhaps it wasn't worded as well as it could be. So I'd at least like to have the opportunity to amend that with Senator Fitton's help, and then we can debate whether or not this resolution is worthy of our time and our vote. Now, I would say that any time that a significant portion of the Cyclone family is affected, that it is our duty to have the discussion regarding that issue. To just sweep this under the rug because, as President Hughes said, our one solitary city council member come in here and voice her opinion. I think that's a little bit irresponsible of us. One person's opinion to discard a bill to discuss a bill that affects thousands. And that just seems a little disproportionate to me. So given the gravity of the bill, I think that we should kill this motion and return to the bill and at least work on some amendments on the language and have a conversation. I yield.
As a notice to the body, please forgive me, but I actually made a wrong comment to Senator Voss, but this motion actually is a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote. Or a postpone.
Really?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Just from what I've seen, from what it looks like. Senator Schulte.
Thanks. I'd just like to comment on what Senator Snell, or Vice Speaker Snell said. So I do agree that this does affect a large percentage of the student body, but I think until we can establish that there's an actual clear threat to it, that there's really no point in passing it, and it seems almost belligerent on our behalf if we pass this if there isn't an actual threat. So I think we need to first establish that. And second, I just wanted to point out that the city councilwoman, I thought she said that there was kind of a general consensus among all the council that there wasn't really any talk of this happening, so I don't think it was just her opinion. I think she was kind of talking on behalf of the whole city council.
Senator Lang. Senator Kern.
Yeah, I guess just to comment a little bit there. I think that to build off of what Senator Fitton said, the fact of whether or not we think that it's it's not going to be contentious with the council, I think it's not really relevant. I think the point is it's a major issue with a large portion of the students. Senator Fitton talked about the student fee increase. That was something that was going to happen, so I guess we didn't really need to put a resolution out, but we did because we felt strongly about it. So I think this is something that affects the student body, and whether or not we think that it's going to be contentious or not, we still need to put our voice out there as representing the student body and showing either our support or our dissent for it, however we decide to do that, but I think it does deserve a debate. With that too, I think it's been hit on several times now, and not to repeat anyone, but we shouldn't take just one council member's points to speak for the council.
I'm clear to go on, but I think we actually should debate the actual bill as itself, so I'm just going to call the question on the motion.
Okay, question's been called and seconded. Is there a call for?
Objection.
Okay. All right, we will do a placard vote, so if you'd like to call the question on postpone indefinitely, you would raise your placard. Note that again, this takes a majority vote.
More information to chair. Are we voting on to vote, or are we voting on the amendment?
Well, there hasn't been no amendment, well, I guess, but there's been a motion to postpone indefinitely, and so we have closed debate on this motion, and so we're going to be voting on whether to postpone indefinitely or not. So if you'd like to postpone indefinitely, please raise your placard. Okay. All right, placard's down. You would not like to postpone indefinitely, please raise your placard now. Okay, placard's down. Any abstentions? Okay, placard's down. All right, with a vote to 7 and 20 to 1, this motion fails. We're now back on the motion as a whole, or the resolution as a whole. Senator Fitton.
I guess I want to address real quickly Councilwoman's comments and the general feeling in the room. I think it's fair to say that no piece of legislation, no piece of value is ever perfect. So I can completely see amendments coming to this bill, but I do want to address the clause, whether it's written out of fear or whatever else you want to call it. and we can have semantics. The Chapter 13, as it currently stands, does apply to graded houses. The city fire chief could go out tomorrow, inspect a house, and find it not in, don't know what word I'm looking for, in compliance, thank you, with the current policy, and it would threaten the house or any facility that the fire chief were to inspect. So I think it is completely fair to say that if these inspections were to go through, it would threaten the homes of your community members. I don't think that's out of fear, that's out of fact. That is simply out of fact. It would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of changes to each of these houses, most of which cannot be afforded by members in the community or the alumni alliances. But second of all, just because it would cost more for those members then to where they can afford to live in the houses because of the renovations that they go through. They would destroy the structures themselves. My house actually just has sprinklers put in the bathroom. And then last of all, there are a lot of houses throughout the community that have historical society standing. If these changes were to go through, they would also threaten that as well. So I can understand if we want to change semantics, but I think I just hesitate to change the clause because it is true. It is currently true as it stands. So with that, I do you.
You can move me down.
Yes, okay. Hi, I'm Hillary Fletcher, a member of Alpha Gamma Delta sorority. My senator is sick this evening, so I have a general feeling of how women of the Collegiate Panel and Council community feel about this, especially because I was at the city council meeting where many of them showed up, packed to the room, and there weren't enough seats because they care this much, because it does threaten their homes. Basically, the fire chief would come in and say, hey, you have to be out by the end of the week, by tomorrow. Then where am I going to live? I'm a sorority girl and I love living in my house. And it's a big deal. It absolutely threatens the tradition of my chapter as well as other chapters within the Greek community. I really hope that you offer your support. One big comment on this bill is people can say they're going to vote one way, but that doesn't mean that they will. So it's a really big deal that we show our support of 12% of our student body who are members of the Greek community and show that we care about the traditions that they live every day through the values that they have as members of their chapters, and that we care about their student experience as members of the Greek community. I just really urge that you pass this as it's written, because as members of the Greek community, we do feel threatened for our homes. That's a real thing. That's an actual fear. So if you have any questions, as a sorority girl, I would love to answer them.
Senator Lake.
Okay, I have a couple of things. As much as I want to keep traditionalized with the Greek community, it is a huge part of Iowa State. We do have a very large Greek population in comparison to a lot of other state schools and schools our size. But these rules are put in place for a reason, as for the safety of its residents due to fire codes and other inspections that these houses are subject to. And I know that they've been exempt in the past and inspections haven't gone through like they should have, and unfortunately these renovations, I guess, need to be done for a safety issue, in my opinion. Yeah, I just have a hard time grasping that it hasn't been in compliance with the code that it's been under. I don't know how long Greek houses have been under the rental code in Ames, but clearly it's been a long time. They've just been exempt from it. I don't support that. I don't think they should be above the code, but I don't think I don't think they should be exempt from the code. What code are they going to fall under if they're not under the Ames City code? Another question I have too. Any other that?
Yes, question one more time.
What code would the Greek houses fall under if they weren't under the city code?
Okay, so this code applies to rental properties. The Greek community housing is already under the fire code, which is all the safety concerns that you have. So there's certain things within rental code
that are different just because rental housing is set up differently. Like, there are not safety measures in this rental code that are different from the fire. There might be some different ones, but they're not the important ones that we're already required to be in compliance with. So that's one reason why it's gone through so much discussion, is because obviously we want all the students who live in our housing to be safe. That's the first and foremost concern, and that's why there is the fire safety code. That's why if there's any safety items, they're being addressed. So this rental code, though, isn't that safety code that our houses are already being held to. It's more about providing certain certain number of bathrooms or parking spots, or just certain things that rental properties are required to have, because they're just different than Greek community housing. If Senator Fitton wants to elaborate on that, I'm going to turn it over to him now if he wants to expand on that.
I do apologize to Senate. I guess this does come out of the blue, and it is my fault for not having enough conversation about this generally beforehand, because there's a lot of background, a lot of context that isn't understood by most non-members of the Greek community. To answer your question directly, Vice President Klesher hit on a lot of it. To give you specific examples, I don't know if you've heard of cold air dormitories. Those are completely different than apartments. I think most people who live in them can assume that as well. But I do want to give some context on the safety and life-saving measures that have been considered by the City Council and the Greek community in the context of this issue. I believe in 2005 or 2006, the City Council passed an ordinance that said all Greek housing facilities had to have sprinklers, which I mentioned earlier, which my house is just coming into compliance with these past 3 weeks. That was a life safety measure that they thought was necessary, regardless of whether it was rental housing or fire code. And so those are every distinction, once again, that Vice President Klesher said, as it relates to life safety or life-saving measures, has been implemented and is currently enforced on Greek houses. They have to be in compliance with the sprinkler ordinance by the summer of 2014, I believe is the end date. So all houses will have those sprinklers by that date. And so the biggest reason why this is an issue, or why many believe there should be an exemption, is because cold airs are different from apartments. I don't need a parking space for my bed because I don't have a car here, and my fraternity is completely okay with that. There are more, I think you have to have so many bathrooms per people. I live on the 3rd floor of my house, which was a cold air, but we don't use it like that anymore. And there's currently 9 people who use a bathroom that has 2 showers, 2 sinks, and 1 toilet and a urinal. And that wouldn't consist of the 2 bathrooms that were needed for all the members that live on 3rd floor. That would be a bathroom and a half. So those are certain things that we as members of the community who live in our chapter facilities just take on as members. And the last thing I was going to note is what I passed over earlier. One of the most important clauses on this resolution is the member-only living facilities. It talks about how it's resolved that we do believe Greek facilities are a university housing option, which the university does consider them at its current state, which is why I did believe this needed to go to university officials. But also, as it currently stands, there are some houses that do rent out to non-members during the summer months if they are not occupied. Sororities do not do that for a number of laughable reasons, but some fraternities do. And so that's kind of what I was going back to before, where we consent as members of the Greek community through our housing corporations who typically own the houses. They're alumni members who basically pull together and actually own the houses. We consent as members to live in those facilities under those qualifications, whereas some of the more luxurious rental housing items under the rental housing code shouldn't necessarily be subjected to non-members of the Greek community. And that is one of the sticking points actually with the City Council right now, which is why I did think this resolution was important.
I do have something that I want to add, if that's okay. One thing I just did want to add is that with the fire code that the Greek community is under, we do undergo inspections more often than other rental properties within the city of Ames, because it is important that those life-saving safety measures are in place within our properties. So that's pretty cool.
That was another one of my points that I was trying to hit on, that select Greek houses do rent out to members of the non-Greek community, members of the Greek community. So that's another thing, their rental properties, they should fall under the rental code. That's all I have to say.
Senator Cusack.
I guess I just have a problem with the language of the bill that says that the students of Iowa State University, because I guess I'm not prepared to say that all my constituents do support this bill. I mean, it's not like I polled them. And I mean, I talked to a few students, but I can't say I canvassed enough for them to say that the majority of my constituents support the Greek housing facilities. I mean, I would imagine so, but I guess I just have a problem with that language.
Is there a motion?
Well, you mean like an amendment?
Is there a motion that you'd like to make? Yeah.
Well, I guess if you say rethink GSB, because still though, as GSB we represent our constituents. Okay, I yield, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do intend to make such an amendment tonight. I assume that Senator Fitton would agree with that. Before I want to make a couple points. The discussion of a threat has come up by a few senators. I don't mean to echo too much what Senator Fitton said, but the threat does already exist. The Greek houses are already in violation under the current reading of the code. So that threat is here, and it is clear, and it is present. And the only thing that is currently saving the Greek houses is the present voluntary non-enforcement. The only thing saving the Greek houses currently is the voluntary non-enforcement of the code pending the city council vote. So they've just kind of put everything on hold for a few weeks until they decide what to do with the vote. The idea was supposed to wait and see what comes of that vote, but if we do that, it could be too late. Depending on which way the vote goes, nothing can happen, but then again, something might. Cities all around the country already have these exemptions. Ames, Iowa is on the short list of cities, university towns that don't have the exemptions. We've never had to have the exemption because the city council simply hasn't enforced this particular area of the code. But now that we have a new code Nazi, I don't know exactly what his title is. He's decided to, enforce some of these codes bigger. I say that humorously, guys.
Say Brian's still here.
Yeah, on the daily. So the codes are being enforced more vigorously. I don't know what the guy's title is. Code Nazis. We all like to dump on the government anyway. So all the houses in question already are they're already subject to fire safety and those kind of codes and regulations. The problematic codes that we're talking about here pertain to clarify what has variously come up between Vice President Fletcher and Senator Pittman. These codes pertain to stuff like parking spaces. Stuff that's not really relevant here. I mean, where the heck is Beta Theta Pi and Alpha Gamma Delta supposed to put a parking lot for their members? I mean, you guys have a front yard, but it's not nearly big enough probably to have, and you'd have to remove some of your architecture out in front of your house. It would look stupid, and you still wouldn't have enough room. So is a parking lot really worth shutting down or shutting out some of the Greek houses that we have here? I mean, I think it's kind of silly. Laws are intended to be logical, they're intended to be rational, and they're intended to pertain specifically to the situation that law is intended to address. This is a tenet of the rule of law, and the rule of law is the core philosophy of the American system. So if this is for rental properties, and we are talking about the Greek houses, which are not 90% of the time a rental property, and if they are hit under the rental property thing during the summers, my guess is they'll probably just stop doing that. But that's a bridge that they can cross in the future. I think that if we can cross a different bridge now, they can work that out later. That's between them and whoever else. And lastly, on this bill, I will call attention to the title. It says supporting Greek community housing. I mean, I think supporting the Greek members of the university is worthwhile, especially over something relatively mundane. This doesn't seem like too big of a deal to me. It's just a resolution. This is just our opinion saying that, hey, you know, we support the city council having an exemption for the Greek system because the Greek system has unique circumstances. They are not a standard rental property. That's all we're doing here, guys. This is not an act of the federal Congress. We're not voting on Obamacare here. We're just saying that we support the Greek system here. So just keep in mind the language. Now, with all of that said, all my pontificating, I'll get down off the soapbox, and I will propose an amendment. And at this time, I move to change all mentions of the students of Iowa State University to say the government of the student body, and that will be in lines 21, 24, and 28. And if I missed one, let me know. And before I complete the amendment, can somebody tell me how many people actually live in the houses? Is it actually 3,000 people? Okay, one more. I can, if someone wants to, I won't put them on here. Sorry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to amend the 3,000 to actually reflect the actual number of people, because I don't think it's certainly. Whatever the number Kyrie gives me, I'm going to change the 3,000 and say that number. So that's what I'm going to do. Therefore, we are now on seconding.
So there's been a motion to amend the resolution. Just so the body is aware, we do have 10 minutes left on the bill. And so there's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. Call. So we're in debate of the amendment. Please put your placards down if you do not like to speak on the amendment. Senator Bauer.
Can I address a question to the Vice Speaker? What is the purpose of changing that to going to student body versus student body state?
I believe as Senator Eastek pointed out that we cannot guarantee that every student at Iowa State University supports this, but we can, if we pass this resolution, therefore say that the majority of the body here does. Most of our resolutions are Senate opinion resolutions, not university resolutions.
Okay. I mean, this is something small, but I guess I just don't really see the distinction since we do represent all students at Iowa State. Everyone in the school represents at least 1,500 students. So, I mean, it's just something small, but I don't really see the distinction between the two because we do represent all students. And no matter what the vote is, obviously we're able to see if the majority of students support the bill, by the bill. So I guess I just really don't understand the need for this amendment.
Finance Director.
Okay. I'm rising to speak to you as an officer of this body. And I'm actually not a Greek member, but a lot of my friends are Greek. And I guess to address the point that some of your constituents might not necessarily support this specific bill. Some of your constituents might not have supported specifically the tuition freeze because it didn't actually affect them. Some of them actually are out-of-state students and got a 4% tuition hike without regard to the resolution that we got because that was only for in-state students. So the scope of impact, and I believe, to my knowledge, I didn't have a chance to double check and verify, but I believe the wording on that bill was the students of Iowa State do support it. Insert rest of bill. So you represent your constituents, but your representation of the student body as a whole is important. And I want to remind you that as an officer of your body. Resolving is an important function, and the voice of the student government often rises to speak on the behalf of the whole. That is basically your job when it comes to relationships like this, whether that's the legislator on the state level or on the national level. We do send things nationally. We have and will probably do again if the situation arises. So this is our job to speak on behalf of the students of our state. And even that, we speak for portions of it. We don't necessarily have to speak for all of it because there are portions that will not be affected by every single thing that we speak on. There are things important to rise and speak with the full force that we can because it does impact our students. Can I find people who would not support this because it says Greek in it? You bet. I can find plenty of people who have a reaction to simply the mention of the Greek system. There are people who just dislike the Greek system for whatever reason, whether that's a stereotype, whether that's experience, whether that's whatever. I can guarantee you 1 out of 32,241 students would say no to this. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. I guarantee you I could find one person who says no to just about everything we do, because usually there's a person in this room who says no. So I think that you have to consider what it is that you're doing. And I think that you have to consider this bill on its own weight with your voice as a representative. Remember that you're representing other people and not just what it says in your placard. I've said that before for those of you who are here. I gave a speech on this once. But you represent everyone, not just your constituency, not just UROC, not just LES. You do represent all students. Your actions here as a body represent everyone. So don't forget that.
May I be moved down, please?
I was also going to speak on behalf of Renewable. I think that the intent is definitely good, but I think that the power of the bill that we would be sending to them as a resolution would change if we put on the GSB. I mean, it means a lot more to say students of Iowa State, 30,000 people compared to 41, So I think that this is kind of an all or nothing sort of thing. I mean, we're really, we're not like committing to do anything right here. We're just voicing our support. So I think that we should either support it or not support it. And that's all I have to say.
We have 5 minutes left remaining on the bill. And Senator Rass.
Yes, motion to extend debate 10 minutes.
There's been a motion to extend debate by 10 minutes, and there's been a second. There's also been a call for received. Are there any objections to receive? None. We'll extend it for 10 minutes.
I have some information to check. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it true that somehow the amendment the time is still?
I'm going to give my support for the amendment since we're on the discussion now. I won't discuss the bill. I'll bring that up later. I think it's important to include that it's the government of the student body supporting this because the language before, if I'm not mistaken, is all students, or which and it almost is like an assumption that it's all students. And I, as a off-campus student and a representative of many people off campus, I can't with good conscience say that all students or students, support this. I think it would be more grown with the government of the student body setting that resolution. As one institution, entity to another, setting a resolution, voicing their support. I don't think it'll lose its weight if we change it from student to government. With that said, if we fail this amendment on changing government, I cannot support the bill in its entirety. But I will lull it over. I'm debating it right now, supporting it with the amendments made to it now. So with that, I will.
I'd like to make one quick distinction about something that FDR said, and that is between this and the tuition freeze bill that came up last year. And while he is correct that it did not, it also disproportionately affected a particular community. The one difference in between those two communities is that the Greek is a defined small section of our, relatively small section, but relatively small section of our college with, in fact, their own seat on this council, a very effective lobbying organization, and in fact its own week. And so I do think that there is some distinction between out-of-staters and Greeks. What I think is true.
I would just like to ask whether there is a week for students or if students week is every week. That's just my comment on that specific point. I think that's irrelevant. So just for everyone else's consideration, I think that's important to know.
I do want to note real quick, Senator Bauerhaus bill up, we did pass a bill that said the students of Iowa State University for both regions. And I think it's important, I want to counter Senator Boss's point real quick. First and foremost, trying to walk around this. As someone who's taken a European class, I think you can appreciate the difference between public opinion and a plural opinion of the students. So I think the distinction is very important in this sense, in a political sense, one that's resolving these two debates on this. But second of all, I think as someone who, I personally did not support the tuition rates, but there was a plural opinion in favor of that, and I know my constituents plurally support that. I think it was important to say that the students did. And so I voted in favor of that because that's what my constituents would have done in a plural society here on this body. So I think the distinction we're trying to make is one that is arbitrary at best. And with that, I'm going to call the question on the amendment.
Okay, the question has been called and seconded. On the amendment, we will go into voting. If you would like to, if you're in favor of this amendment, please raise your placard. Keep them up, keep them high. Okay, coming down. If you are not in favor of this amendment, please click your placards up. Okay, and any abstentions? Alright, done. Okay, with a vote of 19 to 8 to 1, this amendment passes. We are back on the resolution as a whole. Senator Kessler.
Just real quick, I have a question, and it may have been addressed already, so it's not on the document at the time. But can anyone answer, perhaps maybe our three members that are going to be gathered, when it says that in the second resolve clause, the government hereby supports the exemption of Greek housing facilities that meet municipal code chapter 13 rental housing. And yet at the same time, if you look into chapter 13 rental housing code, it says that the inspection cycles that you were speaking of, that says that yes, all fraternities and sororities have this inspection cycle of how many number of years. So are you, with this being passed, would it not say that we are in support of striking all that language? Such as the safety concerns that you've already brought up, like inspection cycles?
You got that, Terry?
Yeah, there's just, once again, it's the fire code. Fire code still applies. That has, there's some redundancy throughout the code, both in terms of housing and fire code inspections.
But if we took it out of the inspection cycle, part of the rental housing, would they not be essentially the same thing, but say two different things?
I don't understand your question.
So if we take it out of the inspection cycles in the rental housing, then you go to fire code and it says inspection cycles, and then it's different between the two documents, would that not create some ambiguity between the two? Because they're not the same, but they're just addressing the same problem, which is inspection cycles?
I don't think I'm understanding your question. I'm just operating.
I don't think you.
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps I'm not articulating fair enough, but if you say that the redundancy between the two documents, you said
Between the fire code and the rental code?
yes, you said that there's redundancy between the two, correct?
I said, like, what I was saying is that if there are any safety concerns in the rental code, those are being addressed so that they are
Okay, I yield.
taken care of.
I feel like, wow, I feel like I have to. Senator Benson.
All right, so for this amendment, there was some discussion of the fire marshal being capable of just saying, going in and shutting these buildings down. And I'd just like to briefly address capability versus reality. I will acknowledge, of course, that the fire marshal is able to go in and shut these down. But the reality is, he will not, he or she, just say, he or she will not. Just like the governor is able to declare a state of emergency, he's not going to do that. That should not be a concern. There should not be any criteria that we use to evaluate this bill's merits. It's simply sensationalism, and for us to regard that as any criterion for consideration is ludicrous. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Box.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate Senator Fitton's compromise and voting yes on the amendment. I do see myself more and more in support of this resolution, especially since we now have the wording down a little better. Did you get, by the way, did you get the 3,000 figured?
I'll speak on that.
Okay. I am actually familiar with Chapter 13 housing law here names because I was working up to actually get my landlord fined for not being up to code. So I know the extensive law that goes with it, and I could just see that just killing a Greek house. I mean, it's not that they're not up to code. It's that they're a completely different facility, and that should be considered. And I think that's one of our jobs. Even though I'm not in a fraternity, and many of my constituents probably aren't either, it's important to think about other students, especially those in the Greek community. And regardless if the was it two council ladies or one running and one incumbent of their comments, there is still a chance that something like this could happen. And I think it would be great to the city council to have a resolution from the government of the student body showing that they should not even consider forcing Greek housing under the Chapter 13 law. So with that, I yield.
I just noticed to the body that you have roughly 3 minutes remaining on the bill. Senator Powell.
Move to extend debate, vote 15 minutes.
Object.
There's been a motion to extend debate by 15 minutes. There's also been a second. So, and entertaining see if everyone otherwise would want to vote.
Oh.
There was a.
I'll withdraw my objection. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, so now there's a call for UC to extend. Are there any objections?
All right, first to address Senator Manzoni's argument, unless you have a written statement from the fire marshal saying that he won't force this, your argument really is irrelevant because he could do whatever he feels like. So unless he's verbally or written to you saying that, I don't think we can draw off that assumption. There's frankly that an assumption. Secondly, I just don't see what the fuss is about this bill. It's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, once again, they're voting next week on this, so nothing is set in stone. You can assume all you want, but as we find out here every night, what people say doesn't happen all the time. So that can happen in city council government too. So I just think we're wasting time on this. I'm going to yield to Senator Fitton and
Two things, permission to read from the Constitution real quick.
Yep.
The Senate shall have the power to represent student opinion in the form of a Senate resolution. I think that's pretty self-evident. Student opinion, it's not just our opinion, it is a resolution. Second point, I'm going to yield to Vice Speaker Snell afterwards because there can be some debate on the number. There are over 3,100 members of the Greek community that are of the Greek community in general. And over 3,000 of those are members of the two specific councils that are stated in this bill, Collegiate and Hellenic Council and Fraternity Council, the two that are the only two that have chapter facilities. Only over 2,000, slightly over 2,000 members actually live in those facilities at one time. So the argument can be made that only those students can call those home. I do not hold that belief, and that's why I'm not going to make the amendment, because even when I didn't live in my chapter facility, I lived in March, and I still refer to my chapter facility as my home. And there are many students in each of your constituencies that actually do that far beyond when they are actually living in those facilities, which is why you have housing corporations that own them, the alumni members own them. And so I quickly want to address Senator Boss's statements that a lot of your constituents don't agree with us or have any opinion about it. Going back to Rural Society, you have members that don't live in their chapter facilities right now, traditionally upperclassmen, but they have, and they still call that facility home. With that, I will yield.
Senator Kemper.
All right, so I tried to look at the fire housing, or excuse me, the fire provision, fire code, the municipal code. And the only thing that says about fraternity sororities is that they should be retrofitted with the sprinkler systems. It says nothing about inspections, unless somebody else can find it for me. Please try to find it, if it does not. So the only part that has the fire inspections is in Chapter 13 rental housing, unless I can't find it. And I've looked pretty extensively. You have something on that?
I guess I'm just rising to the comment that fire code applies to every housing structure in the city of Ames. So they would be required to inspect every house if they had said provision in the fire code.
But the inspections part is not in the fire code.
That's what I'm saying. It's not there for that probable reason.
All right, so take that as you will. The only part that I can find inspection cycles is within Chapter 13.
President Davis, did you have? No. Senator Johnson.
Actually just listened to the code too, and I had a different point, but I wanted to address this to Senator Finn. I was curious, so if this is considered university housing, do you happen to have the municipal code pulled up? I'm referencing a specific part here.
Sorry.
Do you happen to have the municipal code put up? Okay, so in section 13.100 or whatever, in 5, it says it has exceptions, and it says the following residential structures are exempt from these rules. And one of them that it says is university housing. I was curious why this isn't already considered to fall into that if it's university housing.
If you allow me, I'm looking up real quick a response to both of those comments.
Okay.
So I can answer that right now.
Okay, I have a separate point here. Just going off Benzoni's point, I definitely see where you're coming from and share your skepticism, although I will be supporting the bill. But I think that the fact that the current fire marshal has maybe implied or hinted or hasn't been enforced in the past, they won't be enforcing this, shouldn't be taken as a sign that he can change his mind, or that a different fire marshal in the future can change their mind, or that something happens and all of a sudden that's something they do. And also, if I don't know how you feel about this, but if you don't support him inspecting the facilities, I don't understand the point of leaving it in there. Even like if the whole point is that it's not a big deal because it's not being enforced, and we don't like it anyways, I don't see the necessity of having anything in the code where that they are planning to enforce it that they don't even want to. I just don't understand, I guess. But I see where you're coming from. So, but I guess I'll leave it to you actually.
Never mind. I was talking about the kicking them out of their house with basically no count.
Okay, yeah, I just come with more general. Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what Senator Finn has to say in response to the other thing. So then until then, I'll yield.
Yeah, so I guess, in my opinion, resolutions are just kind of supposed to be a voice. Oh, I'm Mike Ofer. Yeah, so I think that any student that really has an opinion on this bill is going to vote for it because they want, most people that actually care are Greek students. So as a member of the Greek community, I'm in support of it. I think, unless you can find a significant amount of people in the Greek community that are against this, this should be passed. I don't know. You guys can argue about details and numbers. Like, I don't know if there has been skepticism at all, but I don't think that this is something you should waste your time talking about. This is something students care about. students care about it, want it to be passed, so you should pass it and stop bickering about it.
Senator Snell.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that anybody's hang up on this bill will be on that G word right there, Greek. I think anybody has any problem with this is hung up on that. There are a lot of people, as Finance Director Radisky pointed out, that don't like the Greek system. As Senator Fitton can attest, I have a great deal of reservations about the Greek system myself. But that's irrelevant, because what is important is that they are students, and they go to Iowa State University, and we are the government of the student body of Iowa State University. So, let's get off the pot here. I'm going to propose an amendment to specify how many students actually live there on Senator Fitton's recommendation. But I have, so you know, I have modified it slightly to a lead year. The 3,000 here actually is the Greek population in general, so I have included that as well. So I'm going to amend line 19 to say threatens the place more than 2,000 Greek students live, and the houses of over 3,000 Greeks in general be there for. And I think that will specify both. And if anybody wants, I'm going to call the question on that.
That'd be second.
There's been a motion to amend, and there's been a second on this motion, correct? Yes? Okay, so now we're in debate of the amendment. There's been a question on this, and there's been a second for the question. Second's been called. We're going to go into voting. UC's been called. Are there any objections?
Object, can we see, I just want to see the rest of the text before we.
You want me to read it?
No, I can see it, I just
She wants to read it.
I want to.
Okay. So whereas the enforcement of the municipal code, chapter 13, rental. Okay. Rental housing, as it now reads, threatens the place 2,000 Greek students live. Did you not want to say more than?
Yes, you're right.
More than 2,000 Greek students live, and the houses of over 3,000 Greeks in general be it therefore. So I believe that the amendment is clarifying the number of Greek students that are living in this.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you.
We're in debate. So.
I was just wondering, so it said, but the impression I'd gotten from Kyrie with the Greek perspective is that was their home. House seemed, I don't understand. I was just wondering why you didn't say the homes of over 3,000 seems more specific to the intent that didn't bill.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to hash
Oh,
out
you
a
mean
compromise
houses.
that everybody can support. Some people have a problem with saying 3,000 Greeks, when only 2,000 actually live there. Therefore, if we can specify only 2,000 live there, but there's 3,000 Greeks, and everybody's happy, we should vote on the bill.
No, I understood. Never mind. That wasn't my point.
Okay. There further debate on this? Question on the amendment?
Second.
There's been a second. We go into voting. UC's been called. Are there any objections for closing for the amendment? Okay. I will pass. Wait. All right. Now we're back on the resolution as a whole. And Senator Bauer.
You beat this enough, call question.
Second.
Question's been called and seconded.
You see?
So,
Thanks, sir.
it's been called, it's been objected to, and we will go into a roll call vote for this. Actually, I'm going to excuse myself and ask that the chair chair the meeting.
You've been asked to return the chair. She would like to be able to talk.
Okay, we're now doing a roll call vote. If you have a bias for some reason that you think doesn't warrant to vote on this, abstain. Are there any questions before we begin voting? Abbas?
Yes.
Agrua?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Benzoni?
Yes.
Black? Yes. Brightburg?
Yes.
So fast. Birch?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Deschus?
Pass.
Feaster?
Yes.
Fitton?
Yes.
Foley? Yes. Renandarova?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kensler?
No.
Kearns?
Yes.
Lang?
No.
Nygaard?
Yes.
Osborne? Parkinson?
Yes.
Peterson?
No.
Plantenberg?
Yes.
Schulte?
Yes.
Snell?
Yes.
Turhall?
Yes.
Voss?
Pass.
Walsh?
Pass.
Williams?
Yes.
Deschus?
Yes.
Voss?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Did I miss anyone's vote? Oh, Senator Kaufman, I'm sorry.
I'm back. Yeah. Yes.
See, you were absent earlier, so I...
No, I understand. I was.
By a vote of 26 to 3 to 0, this passes. We are now in closing announcements. Yay. Does anyone have anything to close out? Senator Johnson?
I do actually. Just super briefly, for those of you who aren't listening, if I probably remember my bill from last week about the climate stuff, I'm working on a new bill that would be hopefully less offensive to Senate. If you have any feedback on that, or would like to get involved or get co-author or anything like that, I would love to get more of a consensus opinion on that bill going forward for the sake of effectiveness. So please don't hesitate to contact me with any comments you have. I'm sorry, why are you pointing at? Oh, I leave the Spencer.
Will Senator Johnson yield to a question?
Yes.
Does this mean you intend to withdraw the original bill?
95% yes. I mean, in all likelihood.
Okay.
I'm always finding I don't like absolutes. But yeah. Yeah. So anyways,
Please,
that's that.
order please. Just everybody stop talking if you're mad and called on right now, because I can't hear, and I want her to be able to hear, and we're almost done.
The question what Spencer asked me is if whether that meant that I was intending to withdraw the other bill. Just I said almost certainly, but I don't like absolutes. Sorry, side major. But I don't, yes, that is the intent at this point. As I feel there's probably a significant enough change, that'll be a different bill. But anyways, yes, please let me know what you think. I'll be right on.
Senator Schulte.
Senator Fusek and I are working on a survey that we're going to send out to all student leaders about problems they may have with their student organizations. And so we're going to be setting up maybe like a Google Forms thing that any senators can go into and just kind of put in some problems that they know of that some of their constituents or our student leaders might have. So just be looking for an email that you'll get from that.
Senator Penberg.
Okay, so Senator Abbas and I are on the Transportation Advisory Council, and one of the issues that we'll be dealing with in the upcoming weeks and at our next meeting will be raising parking permit fees, and the discussion right now is between I think it's a 3% increase or a $10 increase, basically a flat rate versus a percentage increase, which apparently a $10 increase is actually more expensive, but for some reason people like $10 increase more than they like 3% increase. So you can tell Senator Ross or myself your thoughts on that, since it would affect student permits, especially those who live on campus.
Senator Ross.
Yeah, may I address that?
You may.
You said this referring with parking tickets?
Well, parking permits. So I don't think it would affect
you specifically, it would affect the students who live in residence halls or who choose to park at the stadium or on campus there, or the faculty who choose to get a parking spot.
Can you go into more detail about the reasoning why you want an increase, or working on an increase?
To pay for their maintenance, and I can get you more details later on about why I can get them for you.
Well, if you have right now, you can just say it, like the asphalt, I mean, what's...
Yeah, like the maintenance of all their parking lots, the prices keep going up that they have to pay for regular maintenance on all of our parking lots, and so they have to pass those costs on to us.
Okay.
Director Lancer.
Yes, may I address a question?
May.
Would you be willing to share that information with me as well, just because parking was in a single line item? Thank you.
Senator Kleinberg, do you yield?
Yeah, no, further. Actually,
Okay, Senator Johnson, do you?
Oh, I was just. Oh, I guess the main thing I was gonna say is that you guys, if you wanted to just email it out or put it somewhere on the website, you know, everybody can saying that I have no idea what every question was. Wow, okay.
and the new microwave mod is waiting placard. I would give to Senator Ross.
I'd just like to say the whole raising the $10 or 3% is still in the early stages of planning. There's nothing like, it's not like there's going to be a vote on it in 2 weeks or anything like that. So the reason we would bring it up, just we'd like your opinion. Come meet us outside or something, tell us what you think of it. That's really all he is talking about. And then we will provide you further information once we actually have it. So I yield.
Senator Johnson.
I'm sorry, I remember. I was just wondering, did they, you know, is this an increase that they have done fairly frequently? Like, I'm just curious if they've been doing this large an increase in the past to make it sort of questionable.
They do this annually.
Okay. Well, I'm
Or at
just
least
like,
they
how
have
much
the
does it
past,
cost about?
they, at least they have the past few years.
Okay.
And the reason why that people object to a 3% is because the faculty apparently gets a 2% cost for like inflation or something like that raise every year, and hearing 3% is like for some permits that's more, that $10 would actually be more than the 3% increase, but from what I understand, they object to that just because it's 3%, and even though they're paying less money, they're getting that.
That's cool.
Senator Fitch.
Well, after that, I have 2 comments. First of all, I know we don't always agree, but I think Senator Cherhall deserves some commendation for his work with the pizza sales on campus. You worked very diligently on the issue, and I think we got a resolution that was well deserved for students here. The only other comment I was going to make, especially after that exchange, is that personal questions can be just that, personal questions at another time. And that's all I'll say. I will do.
I was making the same comment. Nice one. Senator Bauer.
Ad hoc committee meet over here at the meeting, to be short. Thank you.
Advisor Brody.
I just want to announce that New Student Programs has opened up the application process to become a Destination Iowa State team leader, which is a great opportunity, I think, for all senators to perhaps consider. It's a great way to get in touch with new students that are coming into Iowa State each fall semester. I guess maybe there's some split opinions on how great an opportunity is. But anyway, it is out there. If you go to www.admissions.iastate.edu/leaders, you can check out applications there and get more information and all that kind of stuff.
FDR.
Okay, so first of all, for the new senators, hello, I'm the finance director. They refer to me as FDR because my last name is Radisky. So that's the FDR thing. You can use it or not.
It's really cool you should use it.
And I can tell you later on.
Regardless. I guess my comment, I kind of arrived at this point over watching Senate as in my role over the past, well, now almost session and a half. I got the whole first session, although that's like 3 weeks, and most of this one so far. We're about halfway done. Come prepared. If you've got a question on a bill, hit up the author beforehand. Because not only can you get the information and you help other people understand it, but that person knows what they have to hit on when they say, here are the issues with this bill and here's how this works. Because frankly, I wouldn't know what to tell you on some funding bills, except for I've been doing funding for 3 years. So I know a little bit about the process, but we address things that are different every time. And so if you have questions on things, if you have an amendment, if you have intent to do something, talk to people. That's why we have office hours. So we can be a little bit more efficient. I'm not saying efficiency is the sole key, but there are some questions that everybody has beforehand, but nobody thinks to tell the author the thing is transparent to because they may know it. Whether that's funding, whether that's a resolution on the Greek system, whether that's tuition freezes. I can tell you more about a tuition freeze than the average person, but I might not know what to tell you to help you understand it the way I do. So I think that that's an important thing that we need to make sure that we're doing internally, is looking ahead and asking questions to the people who know it, which usually is the person who writes about it. So you got at least one resource there, and I think President Hughes and I both are willing to serve as resources if we know about the topic. I'm pretty good at funding, you can hit me up for that. I attend all the Finance Committee meetings, and so I usually see all the questions that Finance Committee asks as well. But I'm serious, use your resources. We've got a ton. Thank you.
Wait. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. Yeah. Oh, President Hughes.
I would just like to, again, just briefly mention my electronic version of the update. I plan to send that hopefully tomorrow, maybe Friday. So kind of echoing what FDR said, please read that over the course of the week and do not come. I do not want to hear questions about that next Wednesday. I would like to hear questions about new stuff next Wednesday. And so you can address the old stuff in the week leading up to Wednesday so that we can all act in our capacities throughout the entire week. And I use this term in a derogatory sense because it is derogatory. Don't just be a Wednesday night senator. If you hear that phrase, that's the group of people who show up at 7 o'clock and open their legislation packet and haven't seen it once before. And then when they walk out the door, they're done with GSB until 7 o'clock the next Wednesday. Don't be that type of person. Be engaged, do your job, and contact me with any questions you have. I'd love to work with any of you to work on any issue that you have in mind. Thank you.
Just as a quick question to the president, that includes Thursday mornings because that has happened. But then more lighter note. On a lighter note, will that information in the executive report include the 8-1 loss to Boston Red Sox at the Cardinals at the CA?
Oh, wow.
FDR.
I forgot something, go cycling.
Shall we go 1-6?
Vice President.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, this was a good meeting, I think. No, I think one thing I wanted to reiterate from the beginning of the meeting, back on Spencer's executive update, regarding the library thing. I know a couple of you, two or three of you said that it should stay the old single seat arrangement that it is. If you think it shouldn't, also let Spencer know that too. Talk to a handful of you. I think if you go out there, yeah.
Sorry, this is not totally related, but I forgot to mention something else. Is that all right?
Yeah.
If you still have your notes from what Shannon distributed for the legislators, please leave them with me before you leave. Sorry.
And you can go. She's the one that can't have right. So,
Made up rules.
So yeah, if you are in favor of having the second floor renovation be the same as the third floor renovation, also let Spencer know that. I know I talked to a few of you about that. I've given my opinion to Olivia Madison, the dean of the library, about this already. She asked what Spencer's was too, so if you would like to inform him of your opinion on that too, please do so. That way it isn't just, 2 no votes or 3 no votes on it. Just want to let you know that. That's all I got, y'all. Thank you.
I would go now because I can. So I have several things I want to cover. First, I do just want to cover what Spencer said about being a Wednesday night senator. I've said this before to some of you, and this is something that is a serious portion of my GSB career and actually means a lot. I was a Wednesday night senator. That was me, that was my experience. That's not who I am anymore, and I'm so thankful because it makes these meetings so much more rewarding. Because I'm engaged in discussions outside of these meetings. Because I'm actually talking to students about what you're voting on, and I'm just sitting here listening to. But really, it makes a world of difference in not only for students and you representing them, but in your own personal growth through this leadership role. This is what you make it, so make it something. Don't just make it be a title on your resume, but use it. Use it to help students, use it to help yourself grow. Don't just be a Wednesday nighter. That's all I got about that. Another thing I did just want to mention is during closing announcements, I just want to say from my perspective, try and keep them brief and as an announcement. If you have a personal question, ask it later. That's what email's for, that's what office hours are for, that's what cell phone numbers are for. In addition, I did just want to say, as a reminder, always just be respectful. I think we did a pretty good job of that tonight, but just be nice. We're all on the same team here, and I know we can disagree in here and still be friends outside of this room, but just want to remind everyone to be respectful to everyone's opinions. Moving on from that, I mentioned 3 things during open forum. Senator Voss, if you have questions about those, I can fill you in after because you weren't here. And Senator Kaufman, we can, whatever, you can read the minutes and let me know if you have questions. But if you have any opinions, about the 3 projects that I'm working on, please let me know because your input is what I see as you representing your constituency councils, and so that's a big deal. That's a lot of students. And so being able to take those numbers into discussions with people that have a lot more money and power than I do is a big deal. And for committees, there's still some open seats for the Transportation Advisory Council. There's a few seats that are still open as well as other committees. Please let me know if you're interested in university committees. I can send out a list of exactly what seats are open. Please nod your head if you want that. Okay. No? Well, I got most of the guesses, forgive me. And then the final thing I wanted to mention is that today was National Campus Sustainability Day. GSB had a booth out in front of the library with, among other organizations, as well as different community entities. I was there most of the time along with our GSB Director of Sustainability, and then Director Mike Holford stopped by. It was a really great opportunity to connect with students and ask them for one-on-one feedback about what they think about the projects that we're working on. And so with that, I guess my point is, there were 3 GSBers there today, and I know that it was a little late notice, but getting out there and talking to students, that's your job, and it makes what you're doing so much more fun. And even though it was snowing and all that fun stuff, it was still a great experience, and we have real data about projects that we're working on. So I know I talked a lot. I'm sorry that wasn't typical closing announcement style for me, but with that, I do want to, what? I'm watching you. I know I'm going long today. Final thing I want to say is, tomorrow night, Alpha Gamma Delta is having late night breakfast from 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. at our chapter facility. We're having bacon, eggs, and donuts. It's $5. It's a huge plate of food. It's delicious. You should totally stop by. And the benefits of our philanthropy go to support juvenile diabetes research.
That's all I got.
So they're doing
My
donuts like
sister-
this?
Donuts for diabetes.
Okay, the reason that we have, just as clarification, the reason that we have the meal that we do is because we have donors within the community that donate most of our food, and so that means we give more money to charity. But I agree, it's kind of ironic.
It's still not staying by. Is your parking lot at your sorority large enough for pancakes?
For pancakes.
It's a reference to the city code.
Order. Senate official.
Oh.
Just make it all wrong.